Good evening. Thank you for coming tonight, whether you're here or online or in person. Appreciate you taking your Monday night and being here, especially when there's a Warriors game on tonight, apparently. Good evening. Welcome. It's our last meeting in May. I don't know if anybody else in the room cannot believe that we are almost halfway through 2017. I had to pause and remember what year it was. So roll call, please. City Clerk Von der Linden.
Certainly, Mayor Siebert. Councilmember Aguirre.
Here.
Councilmember Vorgans.
Here.
Councilmember G.
Here.
Councilmember Howard.
Here.
Councilmember Mazer.
Here.
Vice Mayor Bain.
Here.
Mayor Siebert.
Here.
Thank you.
Please rise, and Councilwoman Aguirre will lead us in the pledge.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight, for our first special order of the day, is our Trash to Art contest winner. And I think this is a little bit different than what I was thinking. Like someone didn't want to throw something away, so they just called it art, and then they kept it. This is a little bit different than that. I am proud tonight to be introducing Zoe Zaug and Faustina Matuda, representative with You Rethink Waste, and then have you come on up. And the art, there it is. So I'm going to ask Zoe, I'm going to ask you to come over and describe this for us.
Hi, my name is Zoe Zaug. I am 9 years old. I am a fourth grader and I go to Roy Cloud School. I was super excited to win fourth place in the Trash to Art contest with my Glam Trash Girl. I've always loved to save recycling pieces from trash to make cool inventions using my hot glue gun and a lot of duct tape. At home, I have 5 huge containers full of old caps, yogurt containers, yarn, and tissue scrapes. This is very fun for me because I can use my imagination. I made Glam Trash Girl to show everyone that trash can be turned into something beautiful, and because I love fashion.
Zoe, stay here with us. We're going to give you an award.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members and the public. My name is Faustina Matuta, and I'm with Rethink Waste. Every year, Rethink Waste hosts a Trash to Art contest for third grade students to fifth grade, and we have an individual category. This year, we received about 26 pieces, and Zoe's creative piece was one of the winners, and I would like to thank the City Council or Mayor on behalf of Rethink Waste for recognizing Zoe for a great job.
Thank you. So Zoe, I think recycling is great. I think what's great about the kind of recycling you did is you turned not just bottles into maybe another bottle in the future, but you turned trash into something really fun. And I think that is really great. I'm really proud that you're part of our community. Really proud that you're a Thunderbolt. My girls were all Thunderbolts, so really proud of the Roy Cloud community as well. So on behalf of the City Council and in recognition of your Glam Trash Girl artwork for the annual Rethink Waste Earth Day, I want to present this to you. Congratulations on behalf of myself and the City Council. So thank you very much. Let me get a picture. Stand up. We'll get a picture out here in front. This is what we usually do. So now we will have a swearing in of our appointed boards, commission, and committee members. I believe Carrie Mitchell from the Senior Affairs Commission, Jade Rosa, and Jason Galisadis from the Complete Streets Advisory Committee will be sworn in by our city clerk, Sylvia von der Linden. So if you're here,
Thank you,
come
Mayor.
on up. There's everybody. Oh,
Over here is great. Thank you. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
Jade Rosa.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
domestic,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and I will bear
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State
I take this obligation freely,
obligation freely,
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations, and again, thank you for stepping up for your community. Thank you for being willing to serve. We'll tell everybody else, this is a group of people that were selected out of a very, very rich pool of people. So congratulations. It was a very difficult choice for the city council. There was just a number of applicants and a number of very good applicants. So thank you very much again. I hope you enjoy your service. I think you all will. Both the Senior Affairs Commission and the Complete Streets Advisory are very active and a huge part of what we're doing in Redwood City. So thank you. With that, we move on to public comment. This is for items that are not on the agenda or items that are on the consent calendar. I have one speaker's card. Is there any other speaker's cards? Okay, great. I have one speaker's card that is for Jana Kaiser from Redwood City 2020. There you are. Jana, I'm sorry. I called you Jana, and I know better than that.
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor and council members. And looking forward to sharing this evening a bit of appreciation from Redwood City 2020. For those who don't know, Redwood City 2020 is a community collaborative here in Redwood City and North Fair Oaks. And the intention of the collaborative is to take on big projects that any one entity or organization couldn't do alone for the benefit of young people and their families here in the community. And so I'm here tonight because I would like to express the collaborative's deep appreciation of the support from the City of Redwood City as a whole, from the city manager's team in particular, and all of the staff of the city, and then also all of the council members and your tremendous support of the good collaborative work that's underfoot. So there's a lot that the city does to contribute. So I just want to highlight a few pieces that we could not do without the city's support. Number one is that the City of Redwood City is the collaborative's fiscal agent. So that means that the support of the city is really the umbrella or the shelter of the collaborative. All of our grants go through the city. The HR department from the City of Redwood City supports our staff, and much more. And so we're deeply grateful for the support in your role as fiscal agent. We also appreciate the deep partnership with the city within all aspects of Redwood City 2020 programming. In particular, we have a very ambitious Cradle to Career project that aims to ensure that all young people from birth through career are well supported through holistic programming and wraparound services. The key of that are our community schools, and the City of Redwood City has been an early pioneer of community schools in this community and set an example for the rest of the nation, as many other communities have explored this unique approach to schooling. It's rare that a city is such a core partner. Often these are projects that are taken on by school districts alone, and frankly, it's too big for any one school district to do without community support. So thank you on behalf of the school district and all of our young people and families who benefit from the wraparound services at our community schools. Another piece that's really integral that the city is a large leader within is the work related to our Safe Routes to School programming. That serves more than 2,000 students at 14 of our Redwood City School District schools. And the partnership with you has not only leveraged funds and ensured that this project is maintained over time, but also that it's really fitting the needs of young people and their families. There's much more that the city does, including in our welcoming initiative, all sorts of family engagement partnerships, lots of work related to health programs. But to keep it short, I'll just wrap with one more piece, and that is that this year in particular, we started a new fundraising project that was a President's Breakfast. And the city was a double gold supporter. We could not have had the success of that project without your help. And so thank you for your ongoing support in every aspect and being such an integral core member of Redwood City 2020. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for all you guys are doing. Okay, moving to consent. Do I have a motion on consent?
Oh, second.
A motion and a second on consent. Electronic vote, please. Sorry, I was sitting here looking at a blink thinking somebody might actually vote. Sorry about that. That was me.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Great. So with the consent calendar, we approved a number of items. I'll read a brief summary of those. We amended a professional service agreement with LSA Associates for environmental consulting. Whoops, I can't get these apart. Order of a contract for Middlefield Road and Woodside Road intersection improvements, sanitary sewer pump station improvements, agreement with Extenet Systems for the installation of fiber optics, audit services, amendment and services for professional services for West Coast Code Consultants, approved partial settlement in AMBAC bond insurance cases, annual service and maintenance agreement for Sunridge Systems for records management, approval of a settlement and release to resolve Clean Water Act claims by California River Watch, approval of draft meeting minutes and closed session meetings held on May 4th, May 6th, closed session, open session, regular meeting, and closed session on May 8th, amendment to the sanitary sewage treatment capacity rights and services with the town of Woodside, resolution local support of the 101 Woodside Class 1 Bikeway project, year-end appropriations, estimated revenue and transfer revisions, approval of the green infrastructure work plan to develop a green infrastructure plan in accordance with our municipal regional permit, second reading of ordinance and municipal code amendments for certain community development and police department fees, approved claims and checks dated May 22nd and the usual necessary payments through June 12th. We just did all that with one vote, so thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda, item 7A, is a study session on the Recology Solid Waste Franchise Agreement negotiation update. I believe that our city manager, Melissa Stevenson-Diaz, will be giving us this report.
Yes, I'll introduce this report briefly, and then we'll be turning it over to Joe LaMariana, the Executive Director of SBWMA. So as you know, but for the benefit of the public, the city is a member of a joint powers authority, the South Bayside Waste Management Authority, which owns and operates the Shoreway Road Disposal and Processing Center and coordinates with 12 member agencies, including us, with collection and recycling efforts. The current agreement that SBWMA has with Recology for solid waste and recycling collection services will expire in 2020. And the SBWMA board directed staff to negotiate an extension of that agreement if terms that were mutually agreeable could be reached. I was pleased to participate on the committee that directed the negotiation efforts, and Mike Gibbons in our Public Works Services Department provided able assistance on the technical advisory committee as well. I wanted the council and public to know that my experience in that process was that the city and the SBWMA was very well served by both the professional leadership that Joe provided as executive director, by the consulting team that supported the efforts, and by the responsiveness through a pretty rigorous process of Recology. And I appreciated that and was glad to participate in that. So the study session this evening is to inform you of key terms in the recommended new master franchise agreement that would be used by all of the participating agencies as a starting point for individual agreements. So this evening really is for you to learn about that and to answer any questions you may have. It will ultimately be the SBWMA board who approves the model agreement. And then in the future, later this year, we'll come back to you with an agreement specific to Redwood City for your approval. So with that background, I wanted to share that and then turn it over to Joe for the more comprehensive presentation.
Thank you very much, City Manager Stevenson Diaz. Really appreciate that great comprehensive overview. First and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge Council Member, Mr. Mayor and other council members, Council Member Aguirre, who sits on our board and represents the city with great enthusiasm and distinction. We really value her input. Of course, Ms. Diaz just described her role. She was one of 5 folks on our ad hoc subcommittee. I'll mention them in a moment. I also want to acknowledge our technical advisory committee member, Mike Gibbons, who's been on there for many, many years, and I've really had the privilege of working with him on many issues, and nobody knows the content more than Mike, and Vicki Sherman as well. And getting back to the overarching discussion item that's in front of you today, this is the end of about a year-long process that our board initiated last April. There was a contractual language in the current franchise agreement that says even though the contract doesn't expire until 2020, in fact, the two parties should sit down in the year 2017, meet and confer, and see if they can move forward with a model agreement and some pricing for 2021 and thereafter. So that is exactly what we've done. So this presentation will give you some of the highlights. And unlike Zoe, it's not quite as cute, and it doesn't have the glue gun and the duct tape. It's a lot more numbers. I'm sorry about that. But I think it's very important. And I do want to comment that her accomplishment is indicative of the really fine public education program that we have out there, because we think that's a really core component of behavior change. So I want to thank Faustina, who is a manager on our staff, and she does a great job, and her staff, getting the word out. So, moving on here, I've already touched on the process, the deliverables. Ms. Diaz just pointed out. I should also mention that during that year, there was a lot of member agency input on how to move forward, what items were important, discussion points, etc. There were 2 surveys that went out to all member agency staff, board members, TAC members. The thinking is that the TAC members are on the front lines, and they're the ones likely to hear any feedback on the contractor's performance, good, bad, or indifferent. And so we got a lot of great feedback there. And by the way, the reason we're even having this discussion is our board and the ad hoc committee determined that Recology's performance during the last 7 years as they've implemented the contract, and for the 3 years of transition before that, that 10 years was a really nice sample size to judge whether or not to move forward on it. And it was determined that they've demonstrated professional competency, they've been great community members, and therefore it was, we were given the direction to move forward on that. So with that, we got the input at the member agency level. We also did a second survey with the planning staff for each of the member agencies. There is so much growth going on in our service area, which extends from East Palo Alto to Burlingame. There's 433,000 people, or about 60% of the county's population in that service area. And as you guys well know, and I used to work right across the way here at the county for 10 years, the growth has really been significant, and that comes into play during the discussions here. So we also had a number of technical workshops. So I have been out giving this presentation during the last 3 weeks. And in fact, Ms. Masser was at the East Palo Alto one last week. This is the 11th of 12, I might add. I'm very, very excited about that. Going to San Carlos right after for some follow-up. The workshops were a deep dive. There were two that were about 4 hours in length, going into the numbers, the rationale, the sequence. There was one that was particularly focused on the city attorneys to get them get their points of view, and I'm very happy to say all 12 member agencies were represented there. Lots of fun talking about the contract language on that, but very necessary, of course. Of course, during the way, I gave our board very detailed updates and progress reports in a public Brown Acted meeting. And again, just to tidy up the process itself, on June 22nd, it's anticipated that our board will consider this and presumably vote, hopefully vote to move forward on it. And when that occurs, at that point, the agency is actually done with the process from a formal standpoint. Of course, myself and my staff are very available and willing to help your city staff. But then it goes into the realm of each of the 12 member agencies, and there's two levels to that. The first one is you have to do a consideration to accept the SBWMA board findings. That's a pretty straightforward discussion. That would probably occur in the June, July, August realm. And then you get down to business and you actually sit down with Recology and you negotiate your individual franchise agreement with them. So, and that we're hoping to have done by December 31st. Of this year. The reason why that is important is we've got to allow enough time that if for some reason we can't get this done or there's some objections along the way, that in fact we leave ourselves enough time to have a public procurement process, an RFP in layman's terms. So if, and that takes quite a while. So we're looking to get at least 8 of the 12 done by the end of the year. So the ad hoc committee found a number of benefits of continuing on with the current service provider. And again, this has been provided to our board as well. Most of them fall under the category of continuity and transition avoidance. There are some very real financial benefits to the ratepayers during this discussion. There's also some very significant risk sharing. Labor continuity is a very important item. Recology has a very favorable reputation in our industry and in the marketplace for having professional negotiations in that realm. And then the last bullet item here is it costs currently about $2 to $3 million out of pocket. About $1 million is estimated for an actual public procurement process. Last time around, we did about $1 million public education process during the transition, and there's a number of soft costs that go with that, and that's where that number is derived from. So you may be happy to know that the core collection services, there's no changes being projected. We've actually surveyed the industry and the marketplace, and we've confirmed that we have a very robust and comprehensive set of services, and as a result of that, there's no desire to change them up or down. It seems like they're meeting the needs of the community and the ratepayers. So we're moving forward on that. There are a couple of items where there's a need to still offer the services, but come back with some options that more fairly represent compensation to the contractor. And right now, those items are up there, and I can speak in detail if you've got questions on those. And we also want to work collaboratively with them, with the company to go into 3-year planning cycles on the public education and technical recycling assistance. Key contract terms. The ad hoc committee went into the discussions thinking we were going to recommend another 10-year term. In fact, the numbers bear out that a 15-year term is actually more favorable. There's almost a 4% differential between a 10 and a 15. So because of that, there's a distinct financial benefit to the ratepayers, and so the recommendation is to go with a 15. There are probably 140 plus large, very sophisticated collection vehicles. They represent almost $50 million in capital, and there's a distinct advantage by having the depreciation and interest go out over an extra 5 years, and the company is resolute in saying that their fleets will cover that term, and if they don't, it's on them. They take that risk, but they've made their case that they purchase very top-tier equipment, and they do top-of-the-line maintenance on this equipment, and so they've made their case successfully to the ad hoc committee that works, and that is a distinct advantage pricing-wise. If I could roll some of the numbers here real quick. What we're trying to do is project out what the cost differential would be between rate year 20 and rate year 2021. So 20 is the end of the first contract, 2021 is the beginning of the new contract. So in the column that is for 2020, you see some negative numbers up top, which is really odd. Without getting into too much detail, because I think I'd probably put you to sleep, but normally depreciation for equipment is done over a 10-year period. For some reason, in this particular current contract, it's done over a 9-year period. So normally you'd have about $4 million of depreciation and interest in that 10th year. Doesn't exist right now, and that explains the 7% dip. But rather than have a 7% dip, the committee is strongly recommending that we keep the rates stable to help chip away at the cost in the right-hand column, and we can talk about that in a moment too. In fact, I'll do it right now. What I'd like to bring your attention to is the 10.2% in the lower right-hand corner. That is the recommendation that is going forward to the SBWMA board and ultimately to you folks at the member agency leadership level. That is the number that is currently projected to be the difference in cost, in the cost basis. I need to be very clear on this. The cost basis between the last year of the current contract and the new year, the start of the new contract. And I do have to qualify by saying that's our current projection. These are estimates projected out. There's a couple of caveats listed down below. The fuel index is typically a pass-through, and that would be added in the same fashion that we currently do with a CPI adjustment. And I should mention CPI. Right now we have a fixed cost contract that is limited to CPI. There was agreement to convert the CPI basis from national indices to local indices because the local indices more accurately reflect the cost structure that the company is up against. So we felt that that was fair. And then there's another caveat on there. It says service level adjustments. You may be surprised to learn that with all of the growth in the area, the company actually doesn't financially benefit from that. They're held to the fixed cost contract. So there is a new compensation approach that the committee feels is more fair for both parties to address service level adjustments. So for those jurisdictions that are experiencing growth, such as Redwood City, you would expect the costs to go up accordingly. You would also get the revenue that would come with that to offset that. So those two items would be added to whatever number is recommended up there, and right now it's 10.2. I should also mention, excuse me, that even though it says 10.2, that's for the cost basis. This number gets diluted down a bit when you add in all the other collection costs. Recology represents about 2/3 of the entire waste and recycling handling operation, so about 2/3. So there's some other costs that go in there, and it dilutes that number down. So we're expecting that number to, because I keep getting asked the question, what's that going to do to the rates? I can't answer it specifically, but because each jurisdiction's different, but it should have a larger number to dilute that down with. So this is just another snapshot to show that the contract has worked in relation to CPI. The line represents CPI. The bars represent Recology's compensation. In the year 2012, you'll see that it exceeds CPI because there was a one-time adjustment when they took over from the previous contractor. There were about 3,000 accounts that weren't in the books. They weren't in the database, so there was a one-time adjustment allowed for the company to true that up, and so that shows the net effect of that. And just a couple last slides here. I've already touched on some of these. I've actually touched on most of these. The 5%, let me touch on that. That's a pretty important one. We heard a lot when we did those surveys to the member agency staff, to the TAC, and to the board members about having factors in there to smooth out from the steep ups and the steep downs. So that's one of them, is there will be a 5% cap year over year. If the costs exceed 5%, they're still owed to the company, but it would roll to the next year, and so on and so forth. If they ever get to a certain point and it exceeds, I think the number is now 10%, if it gets somewhere in 10%, which would mean that we would have a very extreme economic situation, then the two parties would meet and confer and work it out, how to make that work. And there were no true-up costs allowed. The company did request it, and it was denied between now and the end of this year. So this is just another way to look at what the increases might be up through 2020. They're pretty much CPI. That 1 year is the 12.2, and then they'd be maximum 5% caps from each year thereafter. And I've already touched on all of these things, so that concludes my presentation, Mr. Mayor, and I'm happy to take any questions.
The questions?
I know it's a lot to absorb.
Councilwoman Mazur.
Thank you. Thanks for the second presentation.
Yes, it probably sticks a little better the second time around.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just have one question. You talked about the surveys that you did, and I think you said you surveyed the Technical Advisory Committee. Can you just remind me again who you said you surveyed?
We surveyed 3 levels of representation in the communities. City staff and Technical Advisory Committee. And then in addition to that, also board members were included.
And what was the sort of general content of the surveys? What types of questions were you asking?
Well, they were customer satisfaction questions, what would you like to do differently questions, and forgive me, I should have stated this earlier. We were very pleasantly surprised to see that there was over a 90% satisfaction level with Recology, which is, I think, a rather extraordinary number in this day and age for service delivery, with tens of thousands of service points each and every day throughout the community, 260 days a year. That's rather extraordinary. So we used a lot of the feedback to help shape our deal points and our discussion points when we sat down with Recology, and it helped gave us real good perspective on what it is we as an agency are looking for. So it was very valuable.
Great, thank you. But you didn't survey sort of the general public.
No, we did not.
Who have their trash picked up.
Yeah, the thinking was that the folks on the front line would have a real good finger on the pulse of what was going on, good, bad, or indifferent. And they gave us a lot of feedback on that. So no, we did not.
Okay, thank you.
No. Councilwoman Howard.
Thank you. You probably heard earlier we passed a green infrastructure plan. We approved it tonight to comply with the NPDES permit, which is, I don't like acronyms, so the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. Yeah. And it's going to add additional costs to the way we do business in Redwood City. It'll turn out to be good for the community and for all of us, but the additional cost. I wanted to know, for Recology, is it going to have an additional cost for them to do business that they hadn't accounted for, such as different containers to ensure no leakage, or certain impervious surfaces that have to have the stored facilities that they have? Is there costs they haven't figured in that may come out later?
Well, I don't want to speak for the company, and they're represented over there by Gino Gasparini, who I know we all know. To give my version of the answer of that is we don't anticipate specific costs associated with their service. We do own, the agency, you're 1/12 owner of the San Carlos 16-acre site, and we are as accountable to those permit conditions as you individually are, so we know exactly what you're talking about, what the impacts are. In this particular recommended renewal of the contract, and by the way, this is a restated and amended contract. It is not a new contract. I want to be very clear on that. If you look at the language, probably 90% of it is the same as it is today. But getting back to the question, we're anticipating the same containers. Obviously, there's a requirement to have them leak-proof now, and they need to continue to do so. That's a performance measure in the contract. So there would be nothing unusual above and beyond that specifically. And we probably will deal with, if there are other costs, and we are anticipating some, they'll be at the facility level. And that is run through another contract called South Bay Recycling. And Recology is actually a party in that company. They don't own it wholly, but they do own a pretty good portion of it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the answer to your question. And I also appreciate the work you did in surveying about the satisfaction level of Recology. I'd like to add 90% survey return of satisfaction with a company I know is astronomical with any organization. And I'd like to add my shout out and congratulations to Recology. They are such a wonderful community partner. They are a fabulous city partner. I am not surprised at the 90%. I mean, if anyone goes out at any function in this community, Recology is there, whether they're physically helping and volunteering in some aspects, volunteering their time. I am so honored and pleased that they work for the city of Redwood City. I just consider them a valued partner for the city of Redwood City, and I'm just glad I hope they're recognized on many levels for the 90% satisfaction survey, because that's pretty substantial and something to be very proud of. Thank you.
Very good.
Councilmember G.
Thank you, Mayor Siebert. Thank you for the update, and I want to thank Councilmember Gede and Ms. Stevenson-Diaz for representing us not only on SBWMA but also on the committee that met and worked on this. I like the report because when I started on the council, there were several different important issues with regard to our rates. Stability and certainty was of significant importance because it would go up and down significantly every year with our previous provider. And one of the other kind of critical roles, particularly for San Mateo County, is the diversion rates and the impacts on how fast Ox Mountain would fill up. And so maintaining the robust recycling program within the service agreement is absolutely critical, because I think all of us would agree I don't think anybody in this room or anywhere is looking to another landfill site in San Mateo County. And so ultimately, some decade from now, we will become an exporter of our trash. And I think I asked a question earlier about the capacity of Ox Mountain, and because of what we're doing collectively, we're able to extend that life. Can you comment about that, please?
Yes, Councilmember G. First of all, congratulations on a very astute observation and comment. I just spent the last 10 years in the Public Works Department and then in the Office of Sustainability with the county. I was a section manager with the Recycle Works Group, and one of my direct responsibilities was to maintain the county's county-wide integrated waste management plan. And in that plan, there is an element that says that each county in California has to have a plan for at least 15 years of disposal. So there are some counties like San Francisco that hasn't had disposal capacity since the late 60s, when the dump at Brisbane filled up, and now we drive by and we see that they're talking about doing some development there. We are, I think, very fortunate here in San Mateo County to have an active landfill that has, when I last checked last year, the last time I saw the numbers was 23 years worth of remaining capacity. So part of the exercise is to recover the materials like we saw with Zoe earlier on, and have different ways to handle material and recover it, and think of these waste materials really as a resource and put them back into the manufacturing cycle, if you will. But the other big benefit is for every pound or ton of material we divert from the landfill, we are saving ourselves that comparable amount of capacity in the future for our kids and our grandkids. So the 23-year number is a mathematical model that's based on a flyover. They actually do snapshots and 3D calculations on volume and what's remaining. Sorry, I don't want to get too into it, but it's actually kind of interesting. So every year that number changes a little bit, and the more we divert, the longer it lasts. It's that simple.
Councilman Gede.
Just want to say that this time around, for any of you that were around for the last process 10 years ago, or it's just so much nicer just because of who we're working with and the level of service that I think the members of this organization have received. And so I'm very happy to work on that and see some promising changes that are really good for all of our communities.
Thank you.
Great. It looks like that's it. Thank you for the hard work. We look forward to it coming back. I do want to add my 2 cents about sitting here probably about 9 years ago when I took over, and it wasn't a rough start because of Recology's fault. It was just it was a rough start. It would have been for anybody. What's amazing actually at that time was the surveys done at that time were really high. So the fact that they're even higher, hats off. I've been both a customer of my residents, but I've been a business customer and had dealings with Recology on both sides of the coin, and fabulous organization to work with. So thank you. It's good to be in business with you all. So we look forward to it coming back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members.
Okay, moving on to item 8A. Before we get to this, I believe Councilwoman Howard has a few words to say.
Thank you, Mayor Siebert. On this item 8A, I need to recuse myself as I have a financial interest near the subject property. I will return following this item. Thank you.
Great. If you have a speaker's card on this item, please get it in now. Once we start the public hearing, it's been our consistent policy not to accept other speaker's cards. So if I see some people bringing it forward, now would be not only the best time, but we're not that far away from it being the only time. So if you are an appellant or the developer, you do not need a card. But otherwise, great. With that, let me walk through the process a little bit. I'm about to introduce Mr. Adams, our associate planner, who will present the staff report. He will then be followed by the appellant, who will have 10 minutes, the applicant, who will have 10 minutes. Then if there are clarifying questions and answers, otherwise we'll open the public hearing, take public comment, and then once that closes, the council will have discussion. So with that, that's the process that we're about to embark upon. And I believe, Mr. Adams, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, council members. The appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of the 612 Jefferson Avenue project, as you well know, is pretty thoroughly discussed in the staff report. So tonight's presentation will just focus on two brief overviews. I'll start with the project itself, its design, the standards and guidelines of the precise plan, and then go into the second half will be a summary of the city's response to the appeal contentions. Just to provide some context, the project site's a 5,000 square foot vacant property near Bradford Street and Jefferson Avenue intersection. It's been vacant for approximately 30 years, and the surrounding uses include multifamily residential and office. Recently constructed, approved, or currently under construction projects shown here: 601 Marshall office building on the same city block, 603 Jefferson condos, which will be built directly across Jefferson Avenue, 68 units, and then the Indigo Apartments to the north across Bradford. As shown in the DTPP map here, the project site is fully within the 12-story and 136-foot height zone. And as proposed, the project is 6 stories and approximately 71 feet in height. If you, just as a note, on the project plans, the building sections show 80 feet to the top of parapet, but that is actually the true elevation above sea level, and the sidewalks are set at 9 feet above sea level. So in reality, what we'll see is a 71-foot building. We're on the street. Going back to the project, it's 20 residential condos that will be for sale, deed restricted to the low income level of affordability for a minimum of 30 years. And it was noted earlier today that there's a typographical error in condition of approval 17C, which does state in the text they're deed restricted for 30 years, but the number 30 in parentheses, the 0 was missing. So that will be corrected in the final resolution. Continuing on, the ground floor of the building contains the lobby and an enclosed parking garage with space for 15 vehicles. Floors 2 through 6 each contain 4 residential condominiums. 3 of the 4 units on the second floor, which is the first floor residential, have private outdoor patios. And it should be noted here, too, that there is no requirement in the DTPP, unlike other multifamily zoning areas. There's no requirement for common open space to be provided. The architectural style is contemporary, and the site's located in the North of Marshall district of the Downtown Precise Plan, which allows for the widest variety of architectural styles, including contemporary. As you all know, the Precise Plan contains standards, which are development regulations that must be met, and guidelines, which are recommendations, but they're not mandatory, and applicants can request deviations from the guidelines. The standards focus on key things such as the building height, the setbacks, parking, sidewalk width, and architectural character. The proposed project complies with all of the standards, with the exception of the required vehicle parking, which has been reduced pursuant to allowances in state density bonus law and the Downtown Precise Plan itself. These parking reductions I'll go into a little bit more detail further on. So as noted, the guidelines are recommended but not mandatory, and applicants can request deviations. As proposed, the project has 15 guideline deviations. These are more fully explained in the table on pages 4 through 7 of the staff report, but they fall under the 8 categories listed here: the frontage length, building base articulation, plinth design, the height of the building caps, the size of the rear yard, the bay windows, the locations on the building where colors and materials change, and the windows themselves. Originally, the project had 10 guideline deviations, which were reviewed by the Architectural Advisory Committee in October of 2016. Of those 10, the AAC voted to recommend approval of 9. The one deviation not recommended for approval was the size of the rear yard area, which is a function of the building's rear yard disposition type. The intent of this building disposition type, as you can see here in the bottom left corner here, is to shift building masses forward out towards the street to create spatial definition, and to create a relatively open area at the center of the block when neighboring properties are developed of the same disposition type. So the guideline specifies an 800 square foot rear yard area, and as originally proposed, the project had 480 square feet. Based on the recommendations from the AAC, the applicant revised the plans to increase the size of the rear yard and adjust some aspects of the architectural design. The revised plans resulted in an increase of 625 square feet for the rear yard area. And those, when staff reviewed those revised plans, they included new bay windows, and 5 additional deviations related to the bay window design and the window inset depth were noted at that time. The project went back to AAC in December of 2016, at which time the 5 new deviations and the rear yard deviation was again discussed. The AAC recommended approving the 5 deviations for the bay windows and the window inset depths, but they again recommended denial of the rear yard. So for some context here, the guideline is for 10,000 square foot lots or smaller. The rear yard should be no less than 800 square feet and a no dimension less than 20 feet. The rear yard shown here in yellow, the dimensions are 50 feet by 12.5 feet. And in December, the AAC's recommendations to the applicant were to either meet the guideline and make the rear yard common open space, which again is not required to have common open space, or to provide common open space elsewhere in the project, such as like a rooftop garden, as we may have seen in other downtown projects, or to provide private open space for the majority of the units. That could be balconies, for example. All that said, staff is recommending approval of the project with the rear yard size of 625 square feet. Staff's recommendation is based on the following factors. The intent, as noted earlier, was with the rear yard disposition type is to shift the building mass forward to the street and to provide to provide an area at the back of the lot and at the center of the block when the neighboring properties are developed in a similar fashion. Also, as a ratio, as a percentage, the proposed rear yard area equates to 12.5% of the lot, the overall lot area. Whereas if you had a 10,000 square foot lot, you could meet the rear yard requirement with only 8% at 800 square feet. So this project is actually providing more than 50% of the overall lot size as rear yard area. In addition, the parcel immediately to the west, which is 611 Middlefield, is a residential historic resource. It's set back approximately 40 feet from the shared property line. And so that, in combination with the rear of this project, helps to contribute to that open space at the center of the block and helps to meet the intent of the DTPP. The AAC also provided comments to the Planning Commission, which were discussed back in April. Their comments focused on the concrete block base, which is their comment was that it could be redesigned to soften its visual impact, particularly next to 620 Jefferson Avenue, which is outlined in this image here. Suggestions included such things as the addition of vegetation along the base of the wall or the use of more buried materials. They also commented on the portions of the concrete base that extended from the entry, the wing walls out to the back of sidewalk. The AAC felt that those could benefit from additional articulation or openings in the walls themselves. The AAC also noted that additional articulation and or higher quality materials on the Jefferson or street elevation could be improved. The site is located adjacent to 3 historic resources, and those are 605 Middlefield, 611 Middlefield, and 620 Jefferson, which is immediately adjacent. 620 Jefferson and 611 Middlefield are historic resources that must be preserved, and 605 Middlefield is a resource that can be altered, relocated, or removed. So in accordance with the procedures outlined in the DTPP, the project was reviewed by Mr. Richard Brandy, who is a qualified architectural historian. Mr. Brandy concluded the project would not have any adverse impacts on the 3 adjacent resources and that they would still be eligible for listing in the California Register. And so on November 17th of 2016, the HRAC reviewed the project, the historian's report, and ultimately voted 4-0 that the project would not create a substantial adverse change in the significance of the surrounding resources and that they will indeed still remain eligible for listing in the California Register. Moving on to those parking reductions that I mentioned earlier on. Under the downtown parking zone requirements, the project would require 28 spaces. However, the California State Density Bonus Law has a provision which allows qualifying affordable housing projects to request a reduction in the amount of required parking. The applicant submitted that request, and the project does meet the state's criteria for the reduction, 1, because it's 100% affordable at the low income level, and 2, because it's located within a half mile of a major transit stop, in this case, Caltrain. The site's about a third of a mile, in fact. The state law specifies that the city cannot impose a ratio of greater than 0.5 spaces per bedroom, which for this project would equate to 20 parking spaces. However, the precise plan has an allowance for an additional parking reduction if certain factors are found to be present. And the precise plan says that when granting additional parking reductions, the city can look at such factors, including but not limited to things as the project's design, its location, its affordability level, and whether or not the project includes unbundled parking pricing, which is where the parking spaces are sold separately from the units themselves. So the project is 100% affordable at the low income level. It's in close proximity to transit, employment, goods and services. A condition of approval specifies that a transportation demand management plan will be required prior to building occupancy, and the parking will be unbundled. So based on these factors, staff determined that a parking reduction of 5 additional spaces is warranted for this project. Continuing with cars and traffic, the question when we look at these projects is, would the project create a new impact or increase the severity of a previously identified impact? So based on, typically a project will do a full traffic analysis. However, this is only 20 units. This is very small in size, and residential only projects create a relatively small number of vehicle trips. So the city's senior transportation coordinator prepared a memorandum which was attached to your staff reports using trip generation estimates from the latest edition of the ITE Trip Generation Handbook. And for a 20-unit condo project, the estimated number of vehicle trips would be 9, in the AM peak hour and 11 in the PM peak hour, which would result in about 3 to 5 additional trips to nearby intersections based on the travel patterns in the DTPP and the existing travel patterns that have been studied in downtown. The result of this analysis was that the project will not result in any new significant impacts or substantially increased severity of a previously identified impact related to transportation, traffic, or circulation. Moving on to the appeal. The appeal has numerous points, which again are discussed at length in the staff report, but they can be broken down into the 2 following categories, basically. 1, that the project is not consistent with the downtown precise plan development regulations and or its policies, goals, and its intent. And 2, that the project violates provisions of the downtown precise plan EIR, and the city cannot rely on the DTPP and general plan EIRs as they relate to traffic. So with regards to the first contention that is not consistent with the DTPP regulations, policies, goals, and intent, the city's response in very brief terms is that the project complies with all applicable DTPP standards with the exception of the parking, which we touched on earlier, and that the project is in compliance with all but 15 guidelines, which were reviewed as required by the Architectural Advisory Committee and ultimately approved by the Planning Commission, all 15 of them, including the rear yard size. In addition, in accordance with the DTPP, the project was reviewed by a qualified architectural historian. It was found to not have any adverse impacts on the surrounding historic resources, nor would it affect their eligibility for listing in the California Register. So by virtue of meeting all applicable development standards and all but 15 guidelines, which were ultimately approved by the Planning Commission, the project is consistent with the policies, the intent, and the guiding principles of the DTPP. With regards to the contention that the project violates provisions of the precise plan's EIR, as with all downtown projects, an initial study was prepared. The result of that was that the project would not create new significant impacts or substantial increases of any previously identified impacts in the DTPP EIR, that no new mitigation measures or alternatives are required, and that by following this process, the city's environmental review complied with all pertinent CEQA guidelines sections, and as a result, no further analysis is required under the. And with regards to CEQA and traffic, that the city cannot rely on the precise plan and general plan EIRs as they relate to traffic. The city uses traffic models to estimate changes in traffic that are based on existing volumes and patterns and the potential land use changes. So when we look at traffic, there's levels of service A through D, which are considered to be acceptable, and levels E and F are considered unacceptable. But a significant impact only occurs when project traffic causes a level of service to change from an A through D to an E or an F, or if an existing E or F level of service intersection has an additional 5-second delay. In the case of this project, the increases in the traffic volumes do not represent a new or more significant impact than identified in the general plan and downtown precise plan EIR based on those criteria which I just explained. In addition, the council, when they adopted the precise plan, they adopted a statement of overriding considerations for traffic impacts at certain intersections. So, as explained earlier, the question at hand was always really boils down to I apologize for the typo I just see here. Does the project at 612 Jefferson create a new impact or increase the severity of a previously identified impact? This project would not create a new impact or increase the severity of previously identified impacts, and therefore no additional CEQA analysis is required. In summary, and to wrap this up, the project meets all applicable precise plan standards. The 15 guideline deviations were reviewed in accordance with the plan by the AAC, and ultimately all 15 were approved by the Planning Commission. The project was reviewed by the HRAC in accordance with the precise plan regulations, and it was determined to have no impact on the adjacent historic resources. The project was approved by the Planning Commission on March 21st, And the initial study demonstrates that the project is consistent with the certified EIR, and as such, staff is recommending adoption of the resolution, denying the appeal, and approving the downtown plan community permit, including all 15 guideline deviations, the tentative map, condominium permit, plan development permit, the density bonus parking ratio, and the parking reduction. And that would conclude my presentation if there's questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there clarifying questions? If not, we'll go to the public hearing. Okay. Is there any additional? Oh, I'm sorry. No, we won't. We will go. I apologize. We'll go to the appellant. Who'd have 10 minutes representing the appellant? Okay. Okay. So you'll have 10 minutes. Okay. I have 10 minutes total, however you want to use it.
Hello, council members. I'll be brief. Yes, it's us again. You know why we're here. Just trying to save our little piece of paradise here in Redwood City. When I was walking over here, there's a big banner right by the courthouse, says Historic Preservation Month. So now we're about to find out whether or not that's just lip service. Let me start out by saying it gives me great pains to have to appeal a habitat project. We welcome them to the community. Our building used to be a residential community. The Do Start Victorian used to be residential. Rich Kai's building used to be residential. There's a little apartment building on the corner, residential. We welcome them. You all know why we're here. This building is 2 stories too tall. I hope that each and every one of you has walked over and looked at this. This building, if it's approved, really epitomizes the bankruptcy of the downtown precise plan, that it would allow this gargantuan building to be built surrounded by these little 1- and 2-story historical structures. It's just an abomination. With all due respect to these people, I'm a condominium attorney. I donate time to these people. I have nothing but the utmost of respect for them. I saw in the paper today, Trump's going to cut funding for them. My sincere apologies. I'll write a letter. But please, this building is going to last forever. Please bring it down 2 stories. Thank you.
My name's Jeff Carr. I'm his partner. I'm not that friendly. This thing is a lawn dart in the heart of what we've been fighting against you people for 4 years. And you people have abandoned your obligation to support the people that elected you to office, that have been here. We've been here for 20 years in that building almost. And one of you was diselected recently because you didn't pay attention to that. And that's your right. You do whatever the hell you want. But here's the deal. This thing is 6 stories in the middle of a block of historical cluster of buildings, the only one outside of an historical district. The only one outside of an historical district in the DTPP. And that document says, and we will urge this in court, that you are obligated to support clusters of buildings not recognized in historic buildings by height restrictions, sunlight restrictions, and general compatibility. The Do Start people, Molly's here. Molly and I talked. The Do Start people and us, that's Mr. Frederick and Mr. Kais and I and his wife, Vicki. We went to work with Do Start when we made this kind of complaint, and those people listened. And what we brought to Redwood City was the best damn building you've got. It isn't some plastic, fantastic crap. It's a building that reflects the historical character of the courthouse kitty corner from it. Molly and Steve, Do Start, sat down with us when we did an appeal like this. They changed the height, they changed the way it looked, and they moved their predominant height back 40 feet from one of the historical resources because we asked them to. And you people did nothing. Not a damn thing. So here you are again, Habitat for Humanity. They were sitting out, standing, talking to the owner of the building that's been trying to hawk that property for 30 years. And I came up to them when I walked by and realized one of them, I don't know which one of these lovely people was there, and said, you need to talk to us because we got problems with anything you might do there. They went ahead and they bought it anyway, and they paid full price for it. They didn't do what a developer would do. They didn't make it contingent on whether or not you approved anything. They paid full bore for that thing. And now they're going to tell you they can't bring it down to what we would like. Mr. Frederick would like 4, I believe 3. Here's why. Everything from Due Start's position in that block over towards the indigo abstraction, for want of a better word, is 2 to 3 stories. Our building is 2 stories with a peak roof. The Victorian next to us is 1.5 stories with a peak roof. Mr. Kai's building is 2 stories with a peak roof, and the not so attractive apartment building on the corner is 3 stories flat roofed. To put that thing in at 6 stories is putting a lawn dart in the heart of any concept of any of the things that we pointed out to you in our appeal about protecting the historical communities outside of historical districts. So we love them. They can be there. In fact, I'll open a place in my fence for the people that come in there to come over, and we'll throw parties together. They can wash their cars in my parking lot. They can come over and we'll have barbecues. Those are my people. People that are in moderate income are the kind of people I deal with. My girlfriend is here. She works as a clerk in the court in this county. She makes the kind of money that would qualify her to be in this building. Frankly, I thought Habitat for Humanity, before I came up against this, was to try to help people that are serving us food, cooking our food, working in these downtown places that make $20 an hour. The people that are going to move in here have to make $60,000 or $65,000 a year to $85,000. And they're trying to sell it. Last time we were here on something, everybody was really happy because this was 20 units to start alleviating our problem in affordable housing in downtown Redwood City. Hundreds and hundreds of units have been approved by you, and we have been talking for 4 years, and Habitat never came to me and said, Mr. Carr, you're right. We should be talking about really going after you folks and talking about affordable housing. Not once did they call me up and go, Mr. Carr, you're right. Mr. Frederick, you're right. Mr. Kais, you're right. We need to take care of affordable housing for people that make $20 or $30 an hour. Nothing of that. Not a damn thing. And now they want to put this thing up. Everybody that sees it, it's on a tiny little postage stamp, 5,000 square feet. Most of your houses are probably half to 2/3 of that, huh? And they want to run that up 6 stories. Here's the personal thing. If you want to know why I'm personally angry, my office will be forever cut off from sunlight by that building. My window goes directly to the back of them. I'm done. So this is personal now. So I'll make it personal. I just spent 2 months defending a man accused of murder in this county by Steve Wagstaff. You guys all love Steve. You love what he does. It's all wonderful. 2 months. Jury came back today at 2 o'clock and acquitted that man of murder. And I will put every bit of energy I have to legally bring this thing down to 3 or 4 stories, the same way I defended that guy. Because this is an outrage. To do this to us now, to let you people to abdicate your obligation and allow us to be stuck with that when Molly and Steve and everybody with a brain knows that we ought to protect this small historical resource, cap it at 3 stories, just as they did, right adjacent to that Victorian housing. If Steve and Molly will do that, you have to ask yourselves, John and Jeffrey, you people that are more growth-oriented, have you lost your way? And that's what we're telling you. You've lost your way.
Okay, we'll have 10 minutes now from the applicant. Who's representing the applicant?
Okay, good evening. I'm Maureen Sedonen. I'm the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Greater San Francisco. Mayor Siebert and council members, thank you very much for having us here tonight. I want to introduce myself and my team. With me, I have Chris Lesia from Habitat, who's also going to speak with us. Our architects, Chris and Stephanie, and our pro bono legal team from Holland and Knight. So Habitat for Humanity Greater San Francisco is a longtime developer in Redwood City. The local Habitat chapter that I represent as CEO is proud to have built 52 homes in Redwood City over the last 28 years. This represents nearly a quarter of the total number of the homes we've built throughout our Tri-County service area. And we've done it with strong community support, with hundreds of dedicated volunteers who've served to build the projects. Habitat for Humanity Greater San Francisco can only build affordable housing in one of the most expensive real estate markets in the country with the support of the community. That support includes corporations, foundations, individuals, small businesses, large businesses, and volunteers who come together for the mission of families in our community. In Redwood City, Habitat is stepping up to the challenge to call for affordable housing by building a development of 20 condominium-style homes in the downtown area at 612 Jefferson. This offers a solution to the immense need for affordable housing here in the Bay Area and in Redwood City by creating transit-oriented living opportunities where the majority of employees commute from neighboring communities to go to work. As it stands, 612 Jefferson is the only 100% affordable home ownership, not rental, home ownership opportunity for people in Redwood City to plant their roots, to become civic leaders, to become the parents and the kids of people like Zoe who are doing their work to make the community great. For low-income families, Habitat bridges the gap and ignites a path to home ownership that's not otherwise possible. We have a very unique funding model and one that is different from other affordable housing providers. We serve families who cannot afford a market rate home, yet make too much income for a subsidized affordable rental. Habitat's 0% interest, zero down payment model of home ownership has provided local hardworking families education and economic mobility. We believe the benefits of stable housing should not be the privilege for a few who come into work here, but for everyone, a right for all. We're proud to be the first affordable homeownership project to be developed within the boundaries of the Downtown Precise Plan, and we believe Redwood City will be proud to have the 20 more Habitat homeowners as part of the community. And I'm going to introduce Chris Leisure.
So as you just heard from Maureen, we have worked hard to be good neighbors, to listen to community feedback, to make adjustments along the way, and to ensure that our design follows the city's guidelines, and to build the only 100% affordable family housing development in downtown Redwood City. Habitat's goal is to provide as many homeownership units as possible. That's our mission, to ensure that families have safe, stable, and affordable places to call home. 612 Jefferson could have been a 12-story condo building. We seriously considered going as high as 9 stories because it would have allowed for nearly 36 units of housing at this location. But we didn't. We didn't because it wouldn't have been appropriate for that block. The design and building size we did decide on and was made better by committee and community feedback allows us to maximize the footprint of the lot size, provide ample natural light to each unit, parking spaces for 15 residents on site with a plan to identify additional spaces off site, and ensures that we can build a mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. Any additional changes to the building design will result in the loss of the 3-bedroom units. We also had our architects look at a shadow study in the sunlight and how it would affect surrounding buildings. And what we realized was that sun would only be blocked until about 10 a.m. depending on what time of year it is as well. Right here in San Mateo County, only 14% of households are able to afford a median-priced home. The San Mateo median home sales price is just over $1 million, and median rent per month is hovering just under $4,000. Homeownership and building equity should be for everyone, not just for the high-income elite. As we navigate the housing affordability crisis, we need to look at providing long-term solutions that stick. In the Bay Area, wealth stratification is becoming a critical problem as families continue to be pushed further and further out. For low and moderate income families, affordable homeownership provides a real opportunity to build wealth, equity, and ensures generational stability. We must not forget that the positive outcomes of homeownership does not just have an impact on the homeowner, but the entire household. In fact, Habitat recently completed a homeowner survey and found that 87% of our Redwood City homeowners are saving for at least one savings goal, and 74% of our Redwood City homeowners feel their families have financial security. Our model works, and soon you will hear from the Habitat homeowners who have been and will continue to be vital community members in Redwood City because they know that affordable housing should be a priority and that their home has made a difference for their family. Thank you.
Is that your presentation? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, we're about to open the public hearing. Last call for speakers cards. Is there any more? One? Okay, this is it. Is that it? Great. I will call you two at a time. If you'll please queue up, it'll help things. Apparently that wasn't it. Just bring it up. Okay, is that it? Okay, that's it. I will call you up two at a time. If you please queue up, it helps the flow of the meeting go a little bit faster. So with that, first speaker is Diana Reddy, followed by Lillian.
Mayor Siebert, Vice Mayor Bain, and City Council members. I'm Diana Reddy. I'm a community builder with Housing Leadership Council and a lifelong resident of Redwood City. I urge you to accept the staff recommendation to deny the appeal before you and to adopt the resolution to allow Habitat for Humanity project to proceed. I urge you not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Is this project perfect? No. 20 units are proposed on a very small lot in close proximity of a historic building. As a Redwood City resident, I would normally not be so enthusiastic about such a project. But I am impressed with the design innovations such as the stacked parking, and there are 20 units for low-income residents. That's huge. Because San Mateo County is such a high-wealth area, low-income residents are our teachers, our city employees, and as was just reported, county employees as well. Many others, and many others who provide essential services to our community. These 20 units will provide housing for families that are not currently housing secure. All our schools, for instance, are having a difficult time hiring and retaining teachers. A teacher in a local district left her job because she was tired of sleeping in her car, which has had a domino effect not only on her school, but on her students and their families. The students are now experiencing a constant stream of substitutes who do not have the credentials to adequately prepare them, and those families who can afford to are hiring tutors. Oh, what about the others? Our community is desperate for affordable housing. Is this project perfect? No. Similar projects take years to assemble the land, financing, and support necessary before they can even break ground. We need to embrace opportunities when they are presented to us. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Please deny this appeal and adopt the resolution before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Lillian, followed by Adina Levine.
Good evening, City Council members and everybody here. My name is Lillian Parra-Gessert, and I am a PhD scientist living in Redwood City for the last 10 years. Okay. I am a scientist working, living in Redwood City for the last 10 years, and I am here as a concerned citizen to express my disappointment with the Habitat for Humanity project proposed for the 612 Jefferson Avenue. I have volunteered in the past for Habitat for Humanity to build houses, and I have very nice memories in particular of the Bayview projects. And to say the least, I think the work they do is just wonderful. There are few words to express the beauty of what they do, helping low-income families to put a roof on on their houses, on their homes. Now, regarding this particular project, there are two aspects that really worry me. The first one, from what I see, is projected for 20 families, and 20 families, low-income family, that assume that the two of them are going to work, or at least mom and dad are going to work in the family. The two of them are going to need a car, and if there are 20 families, we will need at least 40 parking spaces. Where, if the project says that they're going to have 15 parking spots, where are they going to park? Downtown is already congested as it is. I can predict there's going to be a huge negative impact regarding to parking. So perhaps a solution to this will be to add some additional underground parking. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know anything about engineering or architecture. I am a biochemist, but maybe it's possible to add additional parking underneath so everybody can park their car in the building, not having to go to Safeway or something like that to park. And the second concern I have, it has to do with the aesthetic and the architecture of the building, of the projected building. I am basing this on the drawing shown online on the website. With all my respect to whoever designed that, it looks cheap. And I know that they're low-income families. That's clear. But I believe they deserve better. I don't want the building to be spotted. There you can see that's the low income. That's for the building for the poor people, because it looks like that. So maybe there's some.
If you could wrap up, your time's up.
Maybe there's some architectural make the details that could help to make it look better. Thank you.
To Adina Levine, followed by Molly Ricker.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Adina Levin with Friends of Caltrain, and we support a modernized Caltrain and transit-oriented development in the corridor. And today is a really great day to celebrate and encourage more housing. In this case, just a quick 5-minute walk from the Caltrain station and the transit center. Redwood City, over time, has done a lengthy and thoughtful community process as to how to revitalize the downtown and make this a better, walkable, and transit-rich place. And in the wake of the housing crisis and the loss of funding, the city has strengthened its policies for below-market rate housing to seek to preserve Redwood City as a place that has a diversity of income levels and people. This Habitat for Humanity project is a really great fit for this location and for the city's goals. In terms of the parking, Transform has done a number of studies with regard to the use of parking, particularly with below market rate housing, and such developments often have oversupply of parking compared to the need and the use. The unbundled parking is a great feature to help lower household costs for households that can choose to have fewer cars. So I think that this is a good choice for this location, a really welcome addition to the community, and I would urge you to approve this project. Thank you.
Adina, thank you. Molly Ricker, followed by Tom Linebarger.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Molly Ricker. I'm one of the owners of the new office building at 601 Marshall being constructed. And as part of our entitlement process, we received a lot of community feedback. And as you may recall, one of the community benefits we ended up adding into our project was a donation of $500,000 to the Habitat project at 612 Jefferson. And we did that not just because we as individuals think it's an incredible project, but because of the amount of community feedback we heard through meetings about our project, of the incredible need Redwood City has for affordable housing. I also want to add my compliments to the Habitat team for navigating the more than 400 standards and guidelines in the Downtown Precise Plan. Having just been through that process myself, I can't imagine also doing it with being a 100% affordable project. And I'm pleased with the final design, and I'm especially encouraged by their being able to include the 3-bedroom units. I think are really important. So I just want to encourage the City Council to adopt the staff recommendation and reject the appeal and help bring affordable housing to Redwood City today. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom Linebarger, followed by Isabella Chu.
Tom Linebarger. I want to thank the staff for the wonderful work they've done on this project and remind you that just like justice delayed is justice denied, not deciding and moving on this project means it gets more and more expensive. And that's what we have to avoid with low-income housing, is it getting too expensive. So since property is so expensive, it is very important that we utilize the entire property and get as much housing out of it as we can. And that's what they've done a fantastic job of doing this time. These 20 families who live here will not be the only ones who are helped. When they move, the property will remain still remain low-income housing. And that's so appreciated. I know that you've noticed that there's been a change in the population of Redwood City. Old people who bought here 10, 20 years ago, they live here comfortably. New people, impossible. Move out. You either move out and commute a long ways, or you move way out and we never see them again. This is a way to get a monoculture in the Bay Area, have housing so expensive that only wealthy can live here. And even those of us who are wealthy, we want to live close to our children, but we don't want to live with our children. So it's important that we maintain housing for all. So thank you so much for your efforts. I really appreciate this project.
You, Isabella Chu, followed by Avery Ortez.
So I'm, as you know, Isabella Chu, and I wanted to talk about the health impacts of allowing this project to move forward. Second slide, please. So I know all of you have seen this, but just a reminder that where we live has a huge impact on our health. This is a kernel plot of the probability of surviving till 70 for every county in the United States. And where you live can up to double the probability of you making it to 70. So, for example, if you're a black male living in one of the poorest counties in the U.S., it's less than a 40% chance, and that almost doubles in a place like San Mateo or Santa Clara. Next slide. So this is Raj Chetty. He was at Harvard, now he's at Stanford, looked at the interaction between place and wealth. And what happens is at around $70,000 a year, the lines converge, and all you got to do is make more money, which incidentally is more likely in a place like San Mateo or Santa Clara. But below that number for men, the lines spread out, whereas in the bottom spectrum of income, there's up to a 5-year difference in life expectancy. And to give you a sense of the magnitude of this effect, if you were to eliminate cancer in this population, you'd only see a 3-year gain in life expectancy. So where we live has a huge impact. Next slide. Same effect for women, although the lines converge at around $55,000 a year. Women are more resilient to social adversity than men. There's a lot of research into why that might be. Next slide. So this is really what I wanted to focus on. Raj Chetty then looked at what happens when you move from a low opportunity area to a high opportunity area. And it turns out that this has a huge impact on the kids. There is a monotonic dose response, and they actually compared younger siblings to older siblings in the same family to control for the effects of, say, good parenting and things like that. So there's actually a monotonic dose response that for every year of childhood in the high opportunity area, the kids were more likely to finish college, more likely to be married at age 26, and their income went up in a monotonic fashion for every year of childhood they'd spent in the high opportunity area. So when we talk about 20 families, this is what we're talking about. And though I appreciate that views and parking spots are important, we're talking about life. We're talking about getting out of poverty. We're talking about opportunities that are unavailable any other way. And when you allow this building to be built, 20 families will see this outcome. So I would urge you to deny this appeal, to allow this building to move forward so that generations of families have the opportunity to see their children thrive and prosper and have the opportunity to have the, the jobs and the schooling and everything else great that this area affords. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ortez, followed by Anthony Lazarus, I believe.
My name is Arely Ortiz, and I am a homeowner through Habitat for Humanity. My daughters, my older and my younger, are those 65% of daughters or children that go to college. My older is graduated. She works for the Board of Supervisors of San Mateo County. And my youngest is going to UC San Diego this fall. And this is the impact that being a homeowner has been in my life. I found out about Habitat through volunteering. I was an employee of improvement.com, and I was a volunteer, and it was like a dream come true because I was volunteering, and I said, I wish I had a home like this. And I put my name in the list, and I became a homeowner. So it is possible, and I am glad that this project is started, and hopefully it will be approved, and 20 families like mine will be as lucky as mine to be in this kind of good progress like mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony Lazarus, followed by Richard Keyes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, distinguished council members. I've been following this project, not really closely, but kind of closely, and it's really been impressive to see this process work out and to hear all the great comments that we've heard tonight and all the great, I think, emotional kind of appeals that are coming before you tonight. So this is a tough decision for you, and as you know, I might come by and hang out with you guys here and see what people are talking about. And one time, something struck me, and I want to share it. That we were talking about a different project, and someone says, "If you support this project, this will be your legacy, council members." And I think tonight you have a very similar decision for you. If this appeal is supported, and we have further delay that exacerbates the cost and the access to housing for people, this could be a legacy that people will remember that Redwood City said no to downtown units for Habitat for Humanity. I don't envy you, but I want to say that I do appreciate the challenge you have before you, and I think the comments we've heard tonight on both sides, but I believe that this is a project, exactly the kind of project for families, different kinds of units that we must really, really, really seriously consider for downtown Redwood City. Thank you again. Good night.
Thank you. Mr. Keyes, followed by Nori Jaba.
Yes, thank you. I'm Richard Keyes. My wife and I own 620 Jefferson, immediately to the south of this planned project. We're in opposition to it for various reasons. We both submitted letters for your tonight reading, et cetera. But I want to talk about a couple of things. One is I was kind of surprised when Mr. Adams said that when the other buildings on the street, like mine, are down, they're going to be all melded in with 612 Jefferson. So as Mark Twain said, the news of my office's death is slightly exaggerated. And the building that we're in, and if we're talking about history and we're talking about people and we're talking about the reality of this particular area, because I want to talk about safety also. So this is an 1881 building, the Harry Hansen Lumber Company building. And in 1985, it came up for sale. And there were three groups living in there. There was a mother with 2 or 3 kids, and there was a rowdy group on the other side, and up on the attic there was a young man and his aunt. And what we find, if you look through all the discussion about this current 612 project, people are saying there's just not enough room for this giant building, and it's not going to work out. And that's probably why they kept refusing to have the 800 square foot of basic light and air and all that. But when I bought it, there were those three groups, and that one, there's a mother with a couple kids, and that particular street and that area is just too dangerous for children. Now, at the time, it was used as a rental for people, and so they had the backyard, which is now our little driveway, where we have our tenants. Tenants are all attorneys. And when we got ready to change it from living quarters to the office, with all the requirements required by planning department in Redwood City, the mother made efforts to find a place and found a place, and she came and told me that she's in much better shape now because she's not in that particular area. Yesterday I ran the Beta Breakers. People say, oh, how do you get time to work out? Well, you just try to dodge all the cars on Marshall Street right now, and it's just fully packed. And if you read my
You can
wife's...
conclude that your time's up.
I can conclude?
Yes, your time is up, so you need to conclude.
Okay, I will. There's no schools for them to walk to. There's no playgrounds nearby. There's Mezes Park. There's schools that are far away, and they are not safe to go across Brewster, El Camino, and all that. So I think that has to be projected and thought about very seriously. All the parking places...
Your time is... I've let you go well past your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Nori Jaba, followed by Teresa Ramirez.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm a 20-year resident of Redwood City. I am not working on this project, but I do work in the development business. This appeal, I have several issues with this appeal, but a couple of them have not been pointed out tonight. One, the appeal assumes that each and every project in the Downtown Precise Plan must single-handedly meet all the goals and objectives of the Downtown Precise Plan by itself. I believe that it's the sum of the parts that makes the whole, and that each project must contribute to that whole, but is not responsible for that whole by itself. So just take that into account when you read through the appeal. Second, as for the historic preservation issues, please don't forget that this Downtown Precise Plan is a result of a lawsuit over historic preservation issues in its predecessor plan. And as a result of the judgment with that lawsuit, the Historic Resources Advisory Committee had to pre-plan every block and every historic resource in the downtown. That outcome, which was approved by the appellant, he actually thanked the Historic Resources Committee for doing such a good job, and it was approved by the council. And it resulted in the Downtown Precise Plan that we have now. So what we have here is a property owner who was not at any of the publicly noticed special meetings held by the HRAC during that lawsuit period. I know because I was on the Historic Resources Committee at that time, and I was at every single one of those special meetings. The true motivations here were summed up by the appellant when he spoke. He said, quote, "We've got problems with anything you do with that site." I don't think that has to do anything with habitat or historic preservation. I think this appellant would appeal any project on this site. And then there was a comment in the appeal where the appellant said that the development violates the downtown vision, whereby every built piece of development in the downtown area should contribute to the formation of a vibrant and beautiful city center. Well, I, for one, and I think most of the people in this room would agree, that the character of the downtown is not just about architecture, it's about community. And having affordable housing and economic diversity of the residents in the downtown does contribute to the formation of a vibrant and beautiful city center. Thank you.
Teresa Ramirez, followed by Terrence Murphy.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Teresa Ramirez, and I'm a Habitat homeowner at Partnership Courtyards there off of Rollison. What I'd like to do is just share a few points in being a Habitat homeowner. If it wasn't for Habitat, I wouldn't see my daughters graduate from middle school, high school, and college, and hopefully soon graduate school. I have a set of twins who are both psychology majors, and they are focusing on behavioral science. If it wasn't that we had this home, I think we would have moved out of the area. What we need are new ideal thinkers, such as kids who go to school in this area. We need them to stay in this area. I also have the last one of my daughters who right now is working for the county, and as all three of them are having a difficult time to trying to find a home, to purchase a home in this area. If it wasn't for Habitat, they wouldn't have their basis of at least their education, which is really important. As for me, I wouldn't have been able to continue my education as well, and that is also with my graduate and credentialing. It is hard as a teacher to find homes in this area, and it makes a difference, yes, in our professional development, to provide for our students, to provide for our community, because we're not just always teaching, but we also are part of that community. When we need to be around students or children, they always ask us to do it. So if it wasn't for Habitat, I wouldn't be where I'm at. Also, Habitat teaches us to be leaders, leaders in our community. It's not just paying your mortgage or your dues. It's also having us be on the board. So there's a lot of responsibility as an adult as well as being a parent as we continue to work with Habitat, the city, and other members. And I just want to thank everybody for allowing us to speak, and just briefly say that I always thought life was more important than property. Thank you.
Thank you, Terrence Murphy, followed by I have Mario and Maria Cabello. Do you both want to speak? Anyways, if you're here, come on up, Terrence. You may go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members. My name is Terry Murphy. I'm a participant in the Redwood City Forward group. I support the Habitat for Humanity project at 612 Jefferson and ask you to deny the appeal. I ask because providing new homes, especially homes for those in need, is one of the most important issues facing the city. This project, as you all know, will provide 20 condos for families earning less than 80% of the area median income. The benefit to these 20 families will be huge. This appeal is focused on, it's focused on adverse impact to historic buildings, and it's focused on the building's height. To address the historic impact, I can only repeat what the staff said, that the Historic Resource Board reviewed this project and approved it unanimously. The structure shares a rear property line with a historic resource, though that building is set back more than 40 feet from the property line. Regarding height, this building has floor-to-floor heights of less than 10 feet. That's measured from one floor to the next floor, and that's very low for multi-story housing. So it is impossible to reduce the height without reducing, of course, stories and reducing the number of units. To sum up, BAR Architects has designed an attractive building, and it's scaled appropriately to the downtown of a thriving county seat as a whole. I look forward to seeing families move into the new homes, and I look forward to seeing this project approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Maria and they're not here? Okay, I see it. Notice Jonathan Hayes, followed by Evelyn Stivers.
Good evening, Mayor Siebert, council members, and staff. My name is Jonathan Hayes. I'm with Greystar Development. Thank you for your time this evening. Our community is facing an unprecedented housing crisis, and this crisis is even more acute when it comes to affordable housing homes. Housing development in the Bay Area is a challenging process that is fraught with numerous hurdles, and this project's process is no exception. The development is an opportunity to address some of our community's housing needs. I encourage the council to help remove some of these barriers tonight and to help provide much-needed affordable housing by rejecting this appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Evelyn Stivers, followed by Rigo Garcia.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Evelyn Stivers, and I'm the Executive Director of Housing Leadership Council. We work with communities and their leaders to create and preserve quality, affordable homes. And we are here tonight to support the development and to oppose the appeal. I just want to say, when I first saw this site on the housing element, I thought, there's no way you can't build any affordable housing on that. That's just BS. But it took incredible innovation and creativity and fabulous design to make it possible. This project not only will be a great asset for the community, I can't wait to start meeting the neighbors that will move in and do tours, but it will be a model that can be used not only throughout California, but in other areas where we have really high land costs and really challenging development environments. Thank you for your leadership on this council. I know you have to make very difficult decisions all of the time and stand up to bullies that want to litigate on a variety of issues that may or may not have merit. But I really appreciate your leadership. You've done so much especially in the last 2 years, to really promote and push for affordable housing. And this is one more way that you can show that you lead the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Rigo Garcia.
Good evening. I'm a Habitat home owner. I have 3 kids. When I started with Habitat, I thank them for the help they gave me, for my family. My older daughter, she graduated last year from Cal Poly for her master. So she started working in the last summer for the city of Redwood City and the planning department. Now she's working in Marin County for the city planning department. My other son, he served 6 years in the Marines. He graduated from San Jose State University, and now he's applying for sheriff department. My younger son is is a sophomore in high school. Thanks to Habitat, they gave me the opportunity to save some money for my kids to go to the university. Now, this project they're doing here, you look around, those buildings around the downtown by veterans, there's huge apartments. Those by Jefferson, veterans, Maine, and veterans. This behind the library, it's a lot of apartments. Now, I saw another one by the Bay Shore, close to the Marsh Road. It's a lot of apartments and condos. Here, Habitat is asking for 20 condos. Is that much? Isn't it? So just think about it. Now they say traffic, parking. Are those new buildings are not going to have a lot of cars? How about Habitat? He's asking for 20 apartments. So just think about it. So I hope you support this project for Habitat Humanity. Thank you.
Thank you. Concludes my speaker's cards. I have a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
A motion and a second to close public hearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Who wants to start? Questions and comments. We can just do it all at once. Councilwoman Borgens.
First of all, thank you to everyone who spoke tonight. It takes a lot to come up here and speak from your heart. And thank you to the staff for the report. Tonight we're discussing a project and an appeal. I want to give a shout out to Diana Redding. I think you nailed it when you actually combined both emotions, the good and the bad, you know, the pretty and the ugly, and not to let that influence how you feel about the need. And we have a need. We have a huge need here in this community. I live in a neighborhood that has a Habitat project. I live in Friendly Acres. We have one on Rollison Road. It is probably one of the most amazing additions to our neighborhood we've ever had. They are hardworking, very involved in our community. Excuse me. Yes, they have children. I raised a child in an apartment. I'm going to trust that the parents today know how to protect their children. And I'm not going to second guess that they are going to let them play in the street. Especially in today's world, I really do believe that parents get it. Not everyone has that backyard. That is what was always the American dream, the house with the white picket fence, the pretty curtains in the front, and the big backyard. We don't have that option today. We don't have that land available, so we have to think outside the box. We have to think in a way that maybe wasn't, or even is in my mindset, what I would see for families. There's some things about this project I don't like. There's a lot about this I do like. And when I looked at the appeal, and I looked at it over and over, there is nothing in that appeal that I can say stands up to what our downtown precise plan has in writing. It meets all of the rules and all of the requirements except for the accepted deviations, except for the one setback in the backyard that was approved by the Planning Commission for the better of the good. So you have to look at, are we going to hold up a good project based on that one deviation when it's a project that could actually benefit 20 of our low-income residents who desperately need to get that home ownership. This is the first project of home ownership in our downtown. And we talk about this is our new neighborhood. Well, a new neighborhood means people that buy into it and live there forever. In this market today, and with the economy the way it is and job, people tend to move around a lot. You want people that buy into that downtown and become that neighborhood. That's what I see for our downtown. So I went over the appeal. I really looked to see if I could find something in there that we could say, yes, this appeal has merit. And I will say that on every point, the staff's report is correct. There was nothing in there that I could say that this appeal has merit. I looked for it, but there was nothing. And I congratulate Habitat for taking a very difficult piece of land and creating, I'm not going to say it's the most beautiful, but a very good project for a very needed part of our society. And there were many comments that were, excuse me, and Nori Jaba, thank you for reminding us that this was a very lengthy project that the whole community had the opportunity to participate in. This didn't just happen. I mean, we just didn't come up with this downtown precise plan. It was a very lengthy process, and it was appealed on its historical and its shadowing. So both those two issues, which have been brought up tonight, were re-vetted and recertified. And that's how we have our plan today. So is it perfect? No. Is it what we need in our downtown? Yes. So those are my comments.
Councilman Mazer.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much to the Habitat owners who are here tonight. Thank you so much for telling your stories. It's so important to remind us of what we can make possible when we work together as a community. You know, it's pretty, it was interesting. We had Yana Kaiser here earlier from Redwood City 2020. And Redwood City 2020 has as their little sort of tagline, working together to build a healthy and vibrant community that ensures success for all. So if you take that and then you look at the statistics that we saw earlier about the Habitat homeowners that you all provided us, 65% of Habitat homeowners feel financially secure. 83% of Habitat homeowners are putting aside for at least one savings goal. 65% of young adults of Habitat homeowners are in school or have a college degree. And we heard that reflected tonight in the comments by the Habitat homeowners. And if we're serious in this community about ensuring a healthy and vibrant community that ensures success for all. We need to be serious about providing affordable housing in a variety of ways for the people who live here. We had another little bit of statistics from Redwood City 2020, where in 2011, almost half of the families in the Redwood City School District were spending more than 30% of their income on housing. We have spent so much time in this chamber talking about the need for affordable housing. And it's one of our priority goals as a council. And thank you, Councilmember Borgens, for pointing out the merits of this appeal. They just don't hold up. And if we believe what we say, then we absolutely need to deny this appeal and let this habitat project go forward. So I'm just going to add one other thing. Thank you also so much for talking about trusting parents. We did get a letter that talked about whether or not parents should have to have backyards for their kids, where they lived. You know, a lot of people don't have a choice of where they live with their kids. And a lot of people don't get to have a backyard, and a lot of people don't get to choose to live on a quiet tree-lined street. And that's just the way it is. And so the least we can do is make it possible for them to have a safe home that's been built by the community and that belongs in our downtown.
Thank you. Councilmember G.
Thank you, Mayor Seaver. I want to thank everybody that emailed us and wrote letters and came here and took time out and missed the Warriors game to speak on this project, which is very, very important. Before I add my comments, Maureen and Chris, is your counsel here? You know, I want to take a moment and invite, is it Tamsin, up to the podium, because while we are very locally focused on our downtown precise plan, you sent and shared with the council a very descriptive letter about the other aspects that we are also accountable for as a council, as a community, that the state expects us, and specifically the Housing Accountability Act. And I've said, and many of us shared, we are in a housing crisis. The state is in a housing crisis, and there's hundreds, if not 200, different bills being circulated in Sacramento. But this is a real law that's in effect now. So can you just take a moment to share with the public and our community about the Housing Accountability Act, and then our city attorney can weigh in if she has anything else to add.
Yes, I'd be happy to. My name is Tamsin Plume with the law firm of Holland & Knight. I've been practicing CEQA and land use law for almost 20 years, which is why I have some wrinkles and gray hair now. And I'm extremely proud and honored to represent Habitat for Humanity in this project on a pro bono basis. And if there's litigation, honestly, bring it on. So on the Housing Accountability Act, it is important to know that there is a state law. You heard about this in the appeal of the Diller project as well. But it's even more directly and fully applicable in a housing, fully affordable housing project like this one. The truth is, under state law, where you have a compliant project, and even for an affordable project where it's not entirely compliant, which isn't applicable here, you really just don't have a choice under state law. You will subject yourselves to the potential of a lawsuit by an affordable housing group or a potential homeowner from this site. So while it'd be great to think you have some discretion here, you actually have a lot less than you otherwise might in a different project.
That was a very succinct summary, so thank you for that.
Very welcome.
I really appreciate it. Our city attorney, did you want to add anything? That was pretty right on point, so thank you.
Right, no further comment, thank you.
Wow, from two attorneys, I appreciate it.
Every now and again, a miracle will occur.
Oh, great. So thank you very much for taking that time. I apologize to my colleagues, and I'm going to take a few minutes here and really talk about this project. You know, I've had the opportunity to do a lot of different things, and most recently for the Urban Land Institute, I served on a technical advisory panel for a city in the East Bay, which will not be disclosed, because they wanted some help on their downtown and housing. They had a nickname, they do have a nickname right now for their downtown that starts with BOR, and I'll just leave it alone from that part. And there's, in talking with community groups, there's no housing diversity. There's no housing ladder. And some of the groups we talked to want to keep it that way. And most important to me was when we were talking with the youth, I asked specifically, when you graduate from high school, when you graduate from college, do you see yourself coming back to that community? And both of the students said, no way. There's no room for me here. I don't want to be here. I don't want to come back, even though their parents live there. That struck a chord with me because that's some of the challenges that we faced here in Redwood City many years ago. We weren't a vibrant city at that point. We were in that phase. And as Councilmember Borgen stated, and many of us have lived here, the Downtown Precise Plan was a community-based vision. It wasn't the council. The council was the facilitator. That was, and that community task force was led by residents. One of them is here tonight. It was a vision to create a new neighborhood, a vibrancy, jobs and housing together, and not just one kind of housing, a diversity of housing. And it was about community. While I appreciate the candor from one of the speakers, it was not about any one property or any one owner. It was about creating a sense of neighborhood, a heart to our city, and to generate a new vibrancy that exists now. And if you cannot feel that energy, there's something wrong when you walk downtown on a Friday night or a Sunday morning. It's even amazing where I come to Phil's Coffee at 8 o'clock on Sunday, there's an energy there. In addition to all of that, we heard a presentation from our staff a few meetings ago about Partnership Redwood City. Our builders, our developers, our employers and employees are engaged in this community. They are a partner in our community. And Habitat for Humanity has been a partner in Redwood City. I remember when I first worked or was serving on the Architectural Advisory Committee, one of the first projects I got involved with was Rollison Road. I sat with the architect, we made it better, and what a fabulous project. Habitat in Redwood City, our history goes so many years, and I look forward not to this project only, but the next 5 projects here in Redwood City, because the need is so great. That diversity of housing, ownership housing at an affordable level is a vibrancy that we need in our city with a great partner like Habitat for Humanity. This project complies with the Downtown Precise Plan, it complies with our general plan, and it's going to be a great addition to our community. So I will be supporting the denial of the appeal, and as your counsel so eloquently put, bring it on, because I suspect that's what's going to happen.
Councilwoman Aguirre?
Really in support of everything that's been done, and thank you so much, Habitat, for taking the hits as well. I know it hasn't been easy, and thank you for the developers that are here to support and continue to support not only this project, but a lot of the projects that you know we need in our community that are just so hard to find infill housing. And to be able to find it here in the downtown, this is not unique. We have affordable housing right behind us, right next to us, right at the side with families and children, and that's what makes vibrant cities. And a lot of folks like living like this. It's not that sometimes it's a choice, it's not a choice, but if you look any other cities around the world, small cities, large cities, there is a lot of infill housing, and especially by transportation. And I know that's where we're going throughout the Bay Area. For me, this is not a difficult decision. In fact, I wish we could make it 20 stories and just go as far up as we could go. It could be the Salesforce of Redwood City, as far as I'm concerned, because we really need affordable housing and home ownership housing. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. When you have a gift like this that we're getting for our families and our community, bring it on.
Vice Mayor Bain.
Thank you, Mayor. Habitat's been a great partner for our community for more than 20 years, and I've had a long history personally with Habitat. I was out there swinging in the hammer on the Rollison Road project, and you've done a lot of good for the community. I think that what our first speaker, Diana Reddy, said summarized it very well. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. As a matter of fact, I think she repeated that 3 times so that we heard it loud and clear. Would I have preferred a different architecture? I think anybody who's watched me at these meetings knows I don't like contemporary architecture. I would have much preferred neoclassical, something that would complement the historic buildings around it. But is that a reason to uphold this appeal? Absolutely not. The plan says you can build contemporary housing. And I know that Habitat has done everything that they can to conform to the rules of the current precise plan. Do I hope that we'll revisit that as a category of architecture in the plan? Absolutely. But that, again, that's not a reason to hold up this project. I really hope this can progress quickly, and I look forward to welcoming the new residents to our community.
Thank you. Okay, I'll make a few comments. One, thank you to Habitat. Thank you to our staff. Thank you to the residents that were here. I had the pleasure, I think, on Rawlison Road Phase 2 of having an employee at the time go through the process. I was there when he got his keys. If you've never been to a key ceremony, forget watching a 2-hour movie that makes you cry. Just go to a key ceremony. It's not as long, and it's not on a big screen either. So I normally would not refer to an appellant and directly the comments that were made, but I was referred to tonight. Mr. Carr specifically asked me to do my duty. He said, you're obligated to do my duty. And I 100% agree with him. I don't say that a lot about Mr. Carr, but I do tonight. So here's what my duty is. There were thousands and thousands of hours way before I lived in this community, over 20 years ago, dating back maybe to the early to mid-90s, of community input that eventually came about as the Downtown Precise Plan. I was a planning commissioner at the time, and I did my duty. We passed an award-winning plan. That went to court, and the court did its duty, and the court said, we got an issue with 2 things. One was a shadow study, which we heard about tonight. One was historic resources study, which we heard about tonight. We fixed those things. It came back to the court, not back here. The court said it looked good. The person who brought the lawsuit said it looked good. And the Downtown Precise Plan came back to this body and was approved, and I did my duty again. Tonight, my duty is to uphold all of that work that went into it, not the opinion of 1, 2, or 3 people. My duty tonight is to uphold what our community asked for, and it's the Downtown Precise Plan. This approves and meets all but, actually, I did the math, 3.8% of the guidelines in the Downtown Precise Plan. It may not be perfect, but if one of my kids brought home a 96.2% on a test, I'd be pretty happy. Be a pretty good SAT score, too, in case any of my kids are listening. So today my duty is to look at this and look at it with regards to what our community asked for, and that's the Downtown Precise Plan. And my duty is to approve this project. So I'm happy to do my duty tonight. I can't wait here in another couple minutes to do my duty and press the yes button here to get this project moving. A couple of other things that was said about some of the deviations. I want to refer to the rear yard setback, because it was referred to that if this building were lowered in height, he'd open up his backyard and have parties. Well, that'd be good, because he'd only need about half as much food with only about half as many people living there if we cut this thing in half. So I agree. The fact of the matter is, if we're really going to do something about housing, this type of thing is going to become vanilla. What we need to start looking at tiny houses and cargo containers. And this isn't even cutting edge compared to the things we need to be talking about if we're really going to affect the housing crisis in our area. This is a great drop in the bucket, but it's a drop in the bucket. And I am happy to approve it. I'm happy to do my duty. Again, thank you to Habitat for Humanity for sticking with it. Thank you for sticking with it in the long run. I know that you're dedicated to that. I know that you'll see this through. And I know that eventually we'll have families, 20 families coming back before us and telling us their stories about their children that went to college and these other places. And as far as a park's concerned, we are working on that. I know that there's a study going right now on a downtown park. We're working on it. This council is committed to that, and we'll continue to work hard for that. So we will get them a place to play downtown somewhere. We'll work hard on it for you. So with that, I would entertain a motion to deny the appeal.
So moved.
Second.
I'm surprised we didn't fight over that. I think we all wanted to.
Thank you.
So, and now where was it? We have a motion and a second. I get so excited. Electronic vote, please.
Motion carries with Councilmember Howard recused and abstained. Thank you.
Congratulations. Look forward to getting it going. Okay, we are moving right along. I know you're all going to... Oh, nobody wants to stay for this one. Come on, man.
Wait, we're talking about pre-funding pensions? People
Yeah,
are
you
leaving?
think that was
That's
exciting?
weird.
This is about a Section 115 trust. All right, we'll let you clear out real quick. Okay, this is staff report, item 9A, pre-funding pension obligations through the establishment of public agencies post-employment benefits Section 115 trust. I believe our city manager, Melissa Stevenson-Diaz, will introduce the item.
Yes, I will. Thank you. And I'll be joined this evening by Kimber McCarthy, our Assistant City Manager for Administrative Services, to talk about the city's pension obligations and provide the council with a recommended strategy for addressing our significant and long-term challenges. Also, our pension consultant, John Bartel, is present this evening to assist staff with any detailed question that the City Council may have. So first, I wish this were my summer plans. However, we wanted to use some kind of image to describe the journey that we are on together, and I looked actually very specifically for a photo that had people in it, more than one person in it, because this is work that is going to take many steps and many people. I see, a lost water bottle. We can't have that. As we'll be describing this evening, the city's escalating pension costs will have really substantial impact on the city's resources. And addressing these funding obligations is like climbing a mountain together, something we need to do together, step by step, but with deliberation and focus. This mountain did not appear overnight. Mountains don't. And the challenge that's before us really began probably at least 18 years ago when retirement benefits were enhanced in very different economic times. The costs that we need to absorb now are primarily related to commitments that were made to employees who have retired since that time under assumptions that unfortunately did not pan out. And we're not the only ones on this mountain. The state and local governments participating in the CalPERS system throughout the state are all facing the same steep climb. It's important to note that the city over the last several years has taken several important steps to address and manage pension costs. In 2011, we implemented a second tier of pension benefits before there was reform at a statewide level. And we also obtained agreement with our employees to share in the cost of pensions. In the framework we have, our employees agree to pay a part of the employer cost of pensions, even above the amount that they're normally responsible for. And our employees contribute anywhere from 7.75% to 18% of their salary toward pension benefits, rates that are much, much higher than in other agencies. This is a really important and positive steps. Both of these are positive steps that have been taken in the past, although unfortunately they are not enough to address the increasing pension obligations we have. And so the next step in our climb is to help fund the commitments we've made by wisely using our city resources. And we believe that establishing a pension trust is that essential next step for ensuring our financial stability in the future. Our focus this evening is to provide you with a roadmap, or maybe a hiking trail would be the better analogy, for how we can address the city's unfunded liabilities to ensure our long-term fiscal health. Ms. McCarthy will begin by describing CalPERS's pension problems and how we got here, and she'll then quantify the city's liabilities and present the forecast for payments as they escalate in the near term and over the next several years beyond that. I will then discuss how we can address these pension obligations by setting up a Section 115 trust and describe how we recommend funding that deposit. And then finally, I'll briefly discuss the alternative of prepaying CalPERS directly, followed by recommended next steps.
Thank you. So the question of how we got to this place is answered through 4 primary reasons. First, CalPERS had significant investment losses over time. The investment earnings and losses have fluctuated with the economy, but have overall fallen short of the current assumed 7.5 rate of return. The losses during the 08-09 recession were 29% over the 2-year time period. So even with a few strong years in the 2011 to 2013 timeframe, assets didn't recover to the point where they had been anticipated. So the next thing is that enhanced benefits were provided retroactively to employees prior to their retirement. Employees retired under the more generous Tier 1 formula, and employees typically did not have cost-sharing arrangements with their employers such as we have here. The next thing is, throughout the PERS system, the contribution policies in the past allowed for enhanced benefits to be paid from surplus funds, and investment losses were amortized over a 30-year period, which had the positive benefit of limiting annual contribution increases but did not adequately pay down the unfunded liabilities. Finally, people retired at a younger age, and now they're living longer than projected, which basically translates into more payments to retirees over a longer period of time. So as you can see here on this chart, the CalPERS assumed rate of return is currently 7.5. It's shown on the bold black line. But the actual rate of return has been volatile over the past 20 years, where periods of gains have been followed by losses. However, the gains have not offset the significant losses over time. In the past 2 years, the rate of return was 2.4% in 14-15, and just last year it was just 0.6%. So as a result of these factors, the CalPERS board has implemented several changes. First, contributions for unfunded liabilities are now added to the normal costs in installments. There is no asset smoothing or rolling amortization. These changes essentially set forth a more aggressive schedule to ensure liability is fully paid at a certain period of time. Next, CalPERS also changed the mortality assumptions for the assumed lifespan of a retiree. Last, the discount rate is the assumed rate of investment return. In other words, the total liability is discounted by the amount PERS expects to earn in investment returns annually. The board recently announced discount rate changes this past December over the next 3 years, which is shown on this slide. So as I mentioned, the current rate of return is 7.5%. Changes to the rate of return will be phased in over the next 3 years, with the initial impact starting in 18-19 and the full impact by 24-25. The CalPERS board will be reviewing their capital market assumptions shortly, which may result in further changes to the discount rate. The move to a more conservative investments over time means that lower than anticipated returns could occur. If so, the discount rate could be lowered even further in the future. So the next slide shows the impact of the discount rate changes. Unfunded liability is the gap between assets and the cost of benefits that are already accrued. It includes payments owed to those already retired and payments for benefits that are already vested by active employees. The city owes this money to PERS no matter what future changes we make. The city will not see an impact of Tier 2 and Tier 3 PEPRA pension formulas for several years. These tiers are for employees that started after 2011 for Tier 2 or 2013 for Tier 3 employees. So there's not really a significant amount of accrued unfunded liability yet. The city's unfunded liability is primarily related to retired or inactive employees. 61% of the unfunded liability for the miscellaneous plan is associated with retired or inactive employees, and 70% of the unfunded liability for the safety plan is associated with retired or inactive employees. So what does all this translate to in terms of numbers? So this chart shows the projected city contributions over the next 5 years.
In total, city costs will increase by 68%, from the current $21 million annual payment to about $33 million annually in fiscal year 21-22. What this means is that the city will have to find an additional $12 million over the next 5 years just to pay for currently promised benefits. It is important to note that these projections are at a 50% confidence level, which means that there's a 50% likelihood that they could be higher and a 50% likelihood that they could be lower. The next chart shows the costs that increase beyond just the 5-year time frame. The bar on the far left is for 15-16, and the costs are shown through fiscal year 30-31. Costs for public safety employees are shown in green, and miscellaneous employees are shown in blue. By the end of the bar chart, 2031, annual costs will be more than double what they are today. So just as some context for you, as a percent of payroll, the projected contribution rate for miscellaneous increases from a current 26.9% in fiscal year 17-18 to 42.7% in fiscal year 23-24. For safety, the contribution rate increases from 42.7% in 17-18 to 68.3% in 30-31. The positive side of these increases is that they will result in fully funding pension benefits for current employees and retirees. The last chart shows the city's unfunded actuarial accrued liability. So as some background, CalPERS sets employer rates with a combination of two values. The normal cost is the contribution we pay for future benefits currently being earned. We also pay an amount towards our unfunded liability. When we look at the funded status, that tells us how much of our total liability is covered by our assets, and the remaining is the unfunded liability. This gets factored into our rates as we need to make up for that gap in funding. As shown in red, by June 30th, the end of this fiscal year, the city's current estimated unfunded liability is $111 million for miscellaneous employees and $144 million for safety. That is $255 million combined. As mentioned, this is primarily related to inactive and retired employees. The city currently has 564 active employees and 806 retirees receiving pension payments. So even though this is a steep climb, the city can take prudent and measured actions to address these liabilities. One option is to set up a Section 115 trust, which our city manager will now discuss.
So a Section 115 trust is a supplemental and irrevocable pension trust where the funds in the trust have to be dedicated only to pre-funding pension obligations. One way to think of this is thinking of our unfunded liability as being a mortgage that we have to pay over 30 years, although not a fixed mortgage, unfortunately, one that escalates. When we put money in the trust, it's kind of like setting aside money in an investment account and then using the growth in that account as well as the underlying capital to help us pay for the rising costs in pension obligations. It doesn't change the total amount that we owe, but it gives us a new resource for helping to pay those increasing contributions. There are several benefits to setting up a trust for our pension obligations. First, it acts as a reserve fund that helps us pay these annual contributions. It also provides for local control of the funds and more flexibility in the investment allocation compared to maintaining funds in a city invested reserve or giving the money to CalPERS to pay down our liability. The trust also offers higher investment returns than can be attained by maintaining funds in the city's own investment portfolio. As you know, we're highly regulated and restricted in how we can invest our own reserve funds, and our recent returns have been in the neighborhood of 1%. Currently, there are 2 independent retirement plan administrators in California who are able to offer Section 115 pension trusts: Public Agency Retirement Services, or PARS, and Public Financial Management Group, PFM. Both firms have good reputations and solid teams, and in fact, we currently use PARS to administer our 401A program, and we use PFM to handle our city investments. To date, though, the most widely adopted Section 115 trust program is the plan that's administered by PARS. They currently have around 73 client cities who have adopted a Section 115 trust, In our area, this includes Daly City, Half Moon Bay, Morgan Hill, Palo Alto, and Santa Clara. PFM has 3 clients with Section 115 trusts. PARS has partnered with U.S. Bank to serve as trustee for their program, while PFM partners with Wells Fargo. The Section 115 trust offered by PARS has 5 different investment portfolios: capital appreciation, balanced, moderate, moderate conservative, and conservative. And each of those portfolios has different risk profiles with various amounts invested in equities and other instruments. Should the Council proceed with our recommendation to establish a Section 115 trust with PARS, we would recommend that the Finance and Audit Subcommittee then discuss the available portfolios and recommend an approach to the Council for their consideration. In an effort to pay down our unfunded pension liabilities and take steps to improve our financial status, we recommend that the initial deposit for the 115 trust be funded by the fiscal year 16-17 general fund year-end fund balance that is beyond, the 15% reserve threshold. This threshold is consistent with the general reserve practice of the city, as well as other regional agencies such as Daly City, Palo Alto, San Jose, and the counties of San Mateo and Santa Clara. All right, one moment. Using a 15% reserve allows us to maintain a prudent reserve while at the same time fulfill the Council's strategic plan priority of ensuring that the city's long-term fiscal health addresses accrued liabilities. If a 15% reserve level is used, we estimate that the initial trust deposit could be approximately $7.8 to $8.8 million, depending on the final current fiscal year-end balance. We are also reviewing the potential for proportional payments to be made to the trust from all other city funds who have employee salary and benefit costs, such as the sewer and water funds. Making a substantial contribution to the trust now provides the greatest opportunity for investment earnings over time and much more significant leverage in paying future pension contributions. An alternative to setting up the trust is to pay PERS directly. If we were to give money to PERS now, it would reduce the amount owed over a 30-year period. So the total amount owed goes down a little, which does provide us a little relief on a year-to-year basis. One benefit of this approach is that the city would be credited with PERS assumed rate of return, which, as we just described, is currently 7.5%, although that will be changing in the next 2 years. Additional contributions would be applied evenly over a period of time, which means we'd receive an even amount of rate relief over a long period, but including in years in which we have sufficient resources to fund the required annual payments. The primary drawbacks to making additional contributions directly to PERS are that the city would have less flexibility, as we could not control the investment approach or the timing of when the funds would be applied. Should the Council prefer this approach and make a payment directly to PERS rather than establishing a trust, we would still recommend making this contribution by depositing the fund balance that exceeds the 15% reserve. Our recommendation this evening is that you direct us to prepare an agreement with PARS to establish a Section 115 trust, that we would then seek guidance from the Finance and Audit Subcommittee on which investment portfolio with PARS to select, that we would fund the initial trust deposit with fiscal year 16-17 year-end balance beyond the 15% reserve threshold, and return to the City Council for approval of all required trust documents. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments on the direction? We've heard about this before. We had this session on this, and I know the Finance Committee has talked about it as well. So, Vice Mayor Bain?
I'd just like to say this is consistent with what we asked for in our budget study session a year ago, and I appreciate the work that staff put into this.
Absolutely. Yep. Councilwoman Howard, and then.
Thank you. I agree. Thank you, Vice Mayor Bain. I wanted to thank you for giving us information with the choice of PARS, what other Bay Area municipalities had chosen it and why, and I really appreciate that. It's always a question I ask. Who else is doing it and why? Did want to ask the question about single versus multi. I'm trying to remember the term that was used, that PARS does not participate where is it? Investment options, single or multi-employer trusts. Is what this graph or what this chart saying that PARS does not participate in single employer trust funds? There's a comment made under PFM, Public Financial Management, but not under the Public Agency Retirement Services. So I'm guessing it's because they don't offer that, but the other does, but there's no evaluation of it at this point. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, that's good to know. But from the report, it seems staff is overwhelmingly recommending that we use this agency based on the track record with other cities and municipalities and their feedback.
Yes, that is correct. So 73 agencies do participate in this pension fund with PARS, and as Ms. Stevenson-Diaz said, there are 3 agencies that use PFM. One of them is a fire district, and one of them is very recently just brought on, I believe, in the last month with PFM. And we did receive presentations from both agencies, staff did, and with the history that PARS has with the city and their display of knowledge in setting up these trusts, and given the fact that they have at least 73 other agencies and they partner with U.S. Bank, I think that staff felt a little more comfortable partnering with PARS on this than PFM, although they both have great staff and great reputations.
Well, I think it's important to note another reason, and I can see why you would choose PARS. No minimums. No minimum contribution, no minimum fees, no startup fees, no trade transaction fees. On the other hand, the other do have minimums, and they're quite significant. So I think that's important to mention. But thank you.
Councilwoman Borgen, sorry about that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, this is, I actually went and researched both companies, and I looked at a lot of the feedback on their websites, and generally you get good feedback. But the PARS participants started out, scared, concerned, and are overwhelmingly pleased with the outcome. So I was excited to see us going in this direction, at least a 115 trust, because I think it's exactly what we need. The PERS itself is having its own internal struggles, and I think as a city we need to take control of it, and this definitely was the right direction to go. So I'm excited to see this come back.
Councilmember G.
Yeah, that's a mild statement that PERS is having internal. You're very appropriate. Couple quick questions. Just if we were to go down this direction, I want to make sure the answer is yes, that the 115 trust will show up on our balance sheet. As the unfunded liabilities show up, this should show up on the other side of it also. Otherwise.
Yes, that is correct. And I believe it's GASB 68 that determined that. Yes.
That's great. And then, given the 5 portfolios opportunities, are they all the same in terms of their safety, or is there higher risk with higher return, or just
higher risk with higher return?
Okay, so we get to decide on that. So that's part of the local control element.
Yes.
This is a subject that I recall when a couple of us first joined the council, and the Mayor Ira then was championing that PERS just tell us the real number so we can plan. And there's a lot of skepticism that the 7% isn't still the right number, that it's much lower than that. And it probably will happen as we see what happens with their portfolio over the next couple of years, that 7% might go to 6.5 or 6, or as I think suggested a few meetings ago, there was conversation that 5.5 might be the real number. What that means to me is that we need to go quickly and take this step. Many of us talked about it in the last item. Delaying it will cost more money. Delaying action here will cost us substantially more money in terms of how that unfunded liability will grow, but our ability to pay for it will be less if we delay. So I support moving quickly, diligently, thoughtfully, and safely so that we can take the edge off that increase by having a fund that we can control in a safe manner to help offset the growing liability that we have and that we can be able to fund it. So thank you.
Councilwoman Gay.
Yeah, just following up on that, sitting on the Finance Committee with Vice Mayor Bain is it's very important for us to bring to you things that are going to make us fiscally competent, and also that we have the types of reserves and are ready to be able to deal with the unknown of PERS. So I'm very happy that this has come forward. I've always been proud of sitting on this council because we are fiscally conservative, and that we are able to do things like the roads and the streets and everything that we're working on just because of the way that we're investing our money. So this is just another way that shows it.
Councilman Mazur.
Just a quick thank you for the very comprehensive memo. Even though I was quite tired when I read it, I was still able to understand it. So I really appreciate that. And then I just wanted to thank you for bringing up the two different options, Councilmember Howard. And one of the things that I think you said was that one we're choosing is U.S. Bank. And just a quick note, because we've had people come to us multiple times to ask us to take our money out of Wells Fargo, and for a variety of reasons, which you've provided us, city manager has provided us, we can't do that at the moment, but at least we can choose a new investment strategy that doesn't include Wells Fargo. So just wanted a quick note on that, and thank you.
Okay. The comments, you don't need official action by us, just
actually
direction.
Yes, we'd prefer actually a vote to proceed with this recommendation.
So one, thank you. Thanks for working on this. I wasn't kidding when I said that was putting it mildly. What Councilwoman Borgen said, another board that I sit on, we are dealing with PERS, and I'll be very honest with you, I don't care if they're listening or not, they can't be trusted. And so to move into a direction of local control, I think any opportunity we get is great. Thank you to those that helped, and thank you to the staff for putting this out. So if we get a motion to move this recommendation forward, it will come back in a formal trust document later with that understanding.
Moved staff recommendation.
And do we have a second? Second. All those in favor, please push the yes button. Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Okay. Committee, I know we had no standing committee reports. Are there any other committee reports?
Just a quick announcement. I would love to have folks from Redwood City to be part of the policy committee. The application deadline is June 12th. This is to serve on the Metropolitan Transportation Committee, different policy, bicycle, a lot of other things, and this is on the MTC website. So I just want to make sure that folks know that that's opening.
Thank you. Councilwoman Howard.
Thank you. I wanted to mention that the May 13th Pride and Beautification Committee met on Saturday morning at Public Works, and there were over 300 people who came and turned out for our spring clean. And it was more than a spring clean. It was the pre-clean to our celebration of Redwood City's sesquicentennial, which was the following weekend. And I'm very pleased and proud to let you know that there were more youth groups than we'd ever had before. Young Dreamers came out, the Youth Advisory Board, many families with young children. There were, as I said, over 300 people, and we had a wonderful time spreading out over the community, but our big focus was in and around downtown to make it beautiful and glorious for the following weekend. My thanks to Shen Yuen Temple and the San Mateo Credit Union for their contributions of food and also helping to cook and take care of us during that morning. City Trees, they gave everyone who came a sapling to take home with them with directions how to take care of it. Recology, as always, stepping up to the plate and helping us clean up the over 5 tons of debris that were picked up from streets, sidewalks, and waterways that day. So my great thanks to all of them. And also, I'd like to a special thanks to our Public Works Services, Park and Rec, and our city manager's office, who gave their time and were out there and just went above and beyond the call of duty. And I want to thank our city manager, Melissa Stevenson Diaz. She came that morning, even though she had other commitments that day. She came and she spoke to everyone, and I want to thank her for that, because I know the staff appreciated you being there, and so did the community, and it really showed in the enthusiasm of the group. So many thanks. Also, I wanted to mention that I went to Redwood City 2020, which is our leadership council meeting, along with Councilmember Mazer. And we had a very, very productive meeting talking about the fundraiser, where we actually raised more money than our initial goal to help support the programs that were mentioned by Jana Kaiser earlier, which I won't repeat. But the partners we have from all the districts, including and Kaiser and John Gardner and others, it's one of the best partnerships that I think this city could ever be involved with, because they do so much good. You get so much bang for the buck, and so many young children in this community benefit from these programs. So thank you, Mayor Siebert. That would be my report.
Councilmember G.
As one of the speakers said earlier during the 612 Jefferson, today's a great day for public transportation in the region. The announcement from Washington, D.C. this morning that Secretary Chow is going to sign the full funding agreement to electrify Caltrain brings us the final signature and the piece that we need to move forward with construction and electrification of the Caltrain. $647 million grant is a big deal. The project that we have before us that has a shovel in the ground, we're ready to be turned, has been decades in the making, and on behalf of the Caltrain board, just tremendously grateful for the many voices, many hours of dedication, the many people that advocated for Caltrain electrification for decades. This white paper was written in the 1980s. It really got going about 20 years ago. And the voices that helped carry this message forward were not only from the Bay Area, from business and labor and from the cities, but from other states, other communities that would benefit from electrification and jobs. This approval is consistent with the President's intent to fund infrastructure, create jobs, and make sure projects get started within 90 days. And this project is going to get started within 90 days. So I want to thank everybody that was involved. It really is a great day for public transit in the Bay Area. And looking forward to the next step is getting the train from 4th and King all the way to downtown.
Okay, city manager's report.
Well, nobody's mentioned it, but we had this most amazing weekend.
I was
okay. Will you mention that?
I was going to, but I'm getting to that.
So I'll just talk about the most amazing next steps with the Bayfront Canal and just leave it at that. So Aaron Acton, Assistant City Manager for Community Development, and I and some of his staff had the opportunity to meet recently with colleagues with the county and with Atherton and Menlo Park to talk about a shared approach to finally getting the permitting and design needed to construct ultimately the Bayfront Canal. And so we're hopeful that we'll be able to develop an MOU for all of us to work together and coordinate and really treat that project as one that benefits the whole watershed, because of course it does, and it is something that affects all of our communities, and I understand it's taking a long time to get to a point of alignment, but I think we're making progress with that. We know that it's essential for our residents, and we'll keep working in partnership with those groups to make it happen.
Great. City Attorney report?
Nothing to report, thank you.
Okay, so as was prefaced, I did want to had a note here to say a special thank you. I got it, having had been with a sister city in China. It was, and a few of us were there. It was overwhelming. It was a lot of just participating in things. I got a taste of what it's like to be on the other end on a little scale, and I want to thank everyone. I want to thank the staff. I want to thank we thanked Deanna that night, but I want to thank all your staff, Melissa, Sylvia, your staff knocked the ball out of the park. Just everyone, and my colleagues on the city council for really coming together that night and welcoming. It was an incredible picture of our community, and I mentioned this, I believe, to Alicia, when the the Chinese martial artist brought up a gentleman from Mexico with the board and the chopsticks. I bought a whole bunch of chopsticks. I successfully got it into some mayonnaise. I had some mayonnaise, so I stuck it into the mayonnaise. I'm kidding. But then when the dancers were up from Mexico and brought up the vice mayor from China, who, although she was exhausted, that was the perfect bringing together of the communities. And then to see Broadway by the Bay, and the folks that participated there, the whole thing really came together. And so thank you all for everything. Really more just for being Redwood City, because that night and Saturday included was just a really amazing opportunity to show who we are as a community. So thank you for all that. It was a great event. Glad I'm not going to be around for the 300-year anniversary. Happy to try and stick it out till 200 years, but not sure. So it's not bad. So Vice Mayor Bain.
And if I could just add to that, I'd particularly like to thank Barbara Pierce and Dee Eva for their continued leadership of the sesquicentennial celebration. Saturday's event was well received by everyone, visitors from all over. It was amazing. And Ro Fisher and Jackie Federoff for their work on the Art and Flowers show. It was a really great day.
I thought what was amazing today was Barbara's email in that she thanked everyone else. And that just says a lot about who Barbara is and about who Dee are. And it was just fabulous. We'll continue to celebrate throughout the year. There's other events coming. There's more coming, but it was just a great event. And now I would like to give the floor to Vice Mayor Bain, who will be making. I'm sorry.
Barbara Britschke asked me to let people know if anyone would like hydrangeas. They still have them for sale, and they're going to be for sale till tomorrow at City Center, at the City Plaza, Courthouse Plaza, excuse me. And they're down to $15 now because they really need to give them a home before they die. So I hope people will take advantage and do that. Barbara Britschke and her crew, Peninsula Women's Club, did a magnificent job on that.
So I'm going to turn it over to Vice Mayor Bain, who's going to adjourn in memory of Jack Popick.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, Redwood City lost a bit of local history. Jack Popick died peacefully at home on May 10th, just 9 days shy of his 96th birthday. He was preceded in death by his high school sweetheart and wife of 70 years, Anita, who I think many of you may have known as well. Jack was born in San Francisco in 1921 and moved with his family to Redwood City in 1937. His father opened Popick Furniture Company soon after, and Jack joined in the family business. In 1942, Jack enlisted in the Air Force and served as a ball turret gunner on a B-17, one of the most dangerous assignments in World War II. After the war, Jack returned to Redwood City to Popick Furniture, where he remained the rest of his working life. Even after he retired, and retired is in quotes here, and passed the business on to his nephew, Jack was at the store nearly every day until its 2004 closure. Jack was immensely proud that Popick Furniture was a Redwood City institution for over 65 years, and was thrilled when a former customer or child or grandchild or former customer would recount a memory of a piece of furniture that came from Popick's. Following his retirement, Jack volunteered at the San Mateo County Courthouse in the Records Division of the San Mateo County Sheriff's Department, working there well into his 80s. As the only man in the group, he especially enjoyed bringing donuts to his ladies every week. Jack and Anita were also longtime members of Congregation Beth Jacob in Redwood City and ardent supporters of the Sequoia Hospital Foundation. Jack had a wonderful sense of humor, loved to tell jokes, often laughing so hard midway through that he couldn't even get to the punchline. He loved tennis, playing several times a week into his 90s. Even after he was no longer able to play, Jack and his tennis buddies met weekly for breakfast. He is survived by a large and loving family, many of whom I know. I'm not going to name everybody on this list, but I know that they really appreciate us adjourning in his memory tonight.
I'd entertain a motion to adjourn in Jack Popick's memory. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.